Hi, and welcome to another portion of the Scrolls of Ezekiel. I know you're used to seeing Stephanie leading, but she asked me to help her as she is vacationing in Georgia, though she is with us
Mm.
today. Um, it is my honor to be able to partake in the breaking of the bread, leading on these two chapters. And so, having said that, we're going to start right away, right off the bat, with reading chapter 2, which will be read by Stephanie. And once we read, I want to break down a few things just for better understanding. But overall, we're going to be taking it precept upon precept, line upon line, as the Most High commands us. And I pray that this edifies you as we dive in. And as always, I encourage you and those that are live with us to please, please, please share your thoughts, share your revelations, whatever Abba points you to. You're more than welcome to share so that we can all grow together in this. So, having said that, Stephanie, I want you to start with chapter 22, verses 1 through 16.
Okay. Okay. Moreover, the word of the Most High came to me, saying, Now, son of man, will you judge? Will you judge the bloody city? Yes, show her all her abominations. Then say, Thus says the Most High Elohim, the city sheds blood in her own midst, that her time may come, and she makes idols within herself to defile herself. You have become guilty by the blood which you have shed, and have defiled yourself with the idols which you have made. You have caused your days to draw near, and have come to the end of your years. Therefore, I have made you a reproach to the nations, and a mockery to all countries. Those near and those far from you will mock you as infamous and full of tumult. Look, the princes of Israel, each one has used his power to shed blood on you, blood in you. In you, they have made light of father and mother. In your midst, they have oppressed the stranger. In you, they have mistreated the fatherless and the widow. You have despised my holy things and profaned my Sabbaths. In you are men who slander to cause bloodshed. In you are those who eat on the mountains. In your midst, they commit lewdness. In you, men uncover their father's nakedness. In you, they violate women who are set apart during their impurity. One commits abomination with his neighbor's wife. Another lewdly defiles his daughter in law, and another in you violates his sister, his father's daughter. In you, they take bribes to shed blood. You take usury and increase. You have made profit from your neighbors by extortion and have forgotten me, says the Most High, your Elohim. Behold, therefore I beat my fists at the dishonest profit which you have made, and at the bloodshed which has been in your midst. Can your heart endure, and can your hands remain strong in the days when I shall deal with you? I, the Most High, have spoken and will do it. I will scatter you among the nations, disperse you throughout the countries, and remove your filthiness completely from you. You shall defile yourself in the sight of the nations, then you shall know that I am the Adon.
Amen. So last week's portion, I believe we left off with the Most High judging the other nations, such as the Amorites, etc. In this chapter, we start off with him calling out the sins of Jerusalem, which is his people. And we're going to see that throughout this chapter, it's not only Jerusalem, I mean, yes, Jerusalem, but Israel as a whole, and as well as their wicked leaders. So we're gonna, in this portion tonight, we're gonna cover a lot of Leviticus, we're gonna cover a lot of Kings, and it's gonna be juicy. So having read this section, let's break this down. So we already see on verse 2 of the bat that he tells him, now, son of man, will you judge the bloody city? Yes, show her all her abominations. So he is referring to Jerusalem as the bloody city. We see in Ezekiel chapter 20, which was covered last week, that he mentions the same thing. He says, verse 4, will you judge them, son of man, will you judge them? Then make known to them the abominations of their fathers. Nahum 3:1, woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery. Its victim never departs. So right there we see that the reason why it's bloody, or it's been referenced as a metaphor to bloody, is because of the abominations that were carried through from their fathers. We see on verse 3 where it says, thus says the Adon, the city sheds blood in her own midst, that her time may come, and she makes idols within herself to defile herself. There we see the connection again with blood. And how is it bloody? What is the defilement? It has to do with the abomination of idolatry. And through the entire book of Ezekiel, really, and honestly, I think throughout all of the prophets, we see that the clear connection with him referring to Israel, his people as a whole, as his bride. So the sin that he abhors, therefore, has to do with adultery. And if you were with me when we studied Hosea, the book of Hosea makes this very, very clear. So we see in terms of this idolatry, we have, again, we're going to cover that. Well, Stephanie's going to cover that next week, but I want to read already from Ezekiel 24, verses 6 through 7, that the Most High says, woe to the bloody city. So I'm moving this out of my way. It's covering my there. Therefore, thus says the Adon, woe to the bloody city, to the pot whose scum is in it, and whose scum is not gone from it. Bring it out piece by piece, on which no lot has fallen, for her blood is in her midst. She set it on top of a rock. She did not pour it on the ground to cover it with dust. And I think it's very interesting that, again, he makes this reference of blood, because if we recall anything from the Torah, is that the blood was to be covered with dust, right? And we see that in Leviticus 17:13, which NKJV renders it a little bit different. I'm probably gonna go and look for it in a different translation so you can see how it reads. It says, actually, no, the NKJV does say it. Let me see. Whatever man of the children of Israel or the strangers who dwell among you, who hunts and catches any animal or bird that may be eaten, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with dust. Just kidding. NKJV does render it correctly. I was reading something earlier and I thought, but anyhow, this is what I wanted to point out, that whatever it's spilled with blood, in Leviticus we find that it must be covered with dust. And so again, we see what we just read in chapter 24, verses 6 and 7, that her blood is in her midst, meaning it's set up on the rock. And it says she did not pour it on the ground to cover it with dust. So I wanted to bring that connection because, yes, it's a metaphor spoken here, but there's a reason why that metaphor is spoken of. We see in 2 Kings verse well, actually, let me go back to verse 4 before I read 2 Kings, where it says, you have become guilty by the blood which you have shed. Again, the connection with the blood, and have defiled yourself with the idols which you have made. You have caused your days to draw near and have come to the end of your years. Therefore, I have made you a reproach to the nations and a mockery to all countries. Again, defiled. This defilement has to do with adultery with other idols, and guilty of the blood that was shed. We see in 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 16, moreover, Manasseh, which by the way was a king to the house of Judah. I'm gonna break down a little bit later on in chapter 23 about the two houses, but we see Manasseh being a king of the house of Judah. It says he shed very much innocent blood, till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another, besides his sin, by which he made Judah sin in doing evil in the sight of the Adon. And yes, we know in this particular chapter specifically, he was speaking of literal blood, like innocent blood was shed, right? However, there is that connection of that with the idea of blood being shed spiritually. And we see in Deuteronomy 28, verse 37, as one of the curses that would follow the people of Israel if they did not remain in covenant was, and you shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all the nations where the Most High will drive you. In First King 9, verse 7, we see, then I will cut off Israel. By the way, this chapter 9 is when the Most High appears to King Solomon, when he was still righteous, obviously. And he is basically telling him how, reiterating in an essence, in a nutshell, reiterating Deuteronomy 28 to him. Like, if you remain in my covenant as your father David did, these blessings will fall upon you. However, if you break my covenant, this is what will happen. And so in particular, particularly in verse 7, we see that he's warning him, then I will cut off Israel from the land which I have given them, and this house which I have consecrated for my name, I will cast out of my sight. Israel will be a proverb and a byword among all peoples. And again, he is reminding him, remain in covenant. I believe the shedding of blood, though is physical as well. Obviously, Israel was, in wars and shedding blood of innocent people. I believe is also spiritual in the aspect of the covenant, because if you guys remember, when Abraham goes into covenant with the Most High, though it was in a quote unquote dream, I say quote unquote dream because I believe he saw this. It's just the presence, the Shekinah of the Most High was so intense that Abraham could not stand and could not fathom what was literally taking place. But I believe this literally took place. So when they go into covenant, the Most High walks in between, or kills some animals and then walks in the midst of the blood to basically seal the covenant, right? So again, blood is a I don't want to use the word manifestation, but basically the use of blood is the sealing of, it makes the covenant whole, for lack of better words, right? If you void that covenant, it literally means that someone has to die. Yes, solidified. Thank you, Stephanie. Someone has to die whenever you break that covenant. I'm not gonna get in the topic so much of covenant because we're gonna get more into this, but I want you guys to understand what is it that I'm trying to show you here by verse 4, 3, and 4 with the shedding of blood. We also see in Daniel chapter 9, verse 16, O Elohim, according to all your righteousness, I pray, let your anger and your fury be turned away from your city, Jerusalem, your holy mountain, because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people are a reproach to all those around us. And we know that this was during the times of Nebuchadnezzar, when the house of Judah was in captivity in Babylon. We see in verse 6, yes, Jessica, the life is in the blood. So there is a reason why the covenant is solidified with blood. And I see also that Stephanie had shared, we were justified by the blood of that Messiah shed. Yes, absolutely. Because of the fact that the covenant that was made with Abraham from the very beginning in the book of Genesis, literally was a covenant that could not be broken. On Mount Sinai, when the Torah, right before the Torah is given, the covenant was reiterated, right? The same covenant that was given to Abraham was throughout his generations, throughout his seeds. So when the sin of the golden calf took place, the covenant was nullified, right? So that only means that someone has to die. And someone did die, which was Messiah. It's the most beautiful love story that could ever be told. Let's continue on the topic of the sins of Jerusalem. So verse 6, it says, look, the princes of Israel, each one has used his power to shed blood in you. And I know that Stephanie has been beautifully explaining the beautiful metaphors throughout the book of Ezekiel in terms of the princes of Israel, the kings of Israel. And in this case, it's literally telling us that they have used their power to shed blood against the people, right? So we see on verse 6, Isaiah 1, verse 23, your princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. Everyone loves bribes and follows after rewards. They do not defend the fatherless, nor does the cause of the widow come before them. Um, in other words, they were lawless. They were breaking Torah left and right. And the whole matter of Torah is to love the Most High and to love your neighbor. So it's very interesting that it makes mention of how these princes were rebellious. They were thieves, right? They loved bribes. They follow after rewards, which is kind of like what we see today, even in the leadership of churchianity. Again, we see that in this same chapter. We'll see that on verse 27, her princes in her midst, like wolves tearing the prey, to shed blood, to destroy people, and to get dishonest gain. We also see in Micah 3, verses 1 through 3, and I said, hear now, O heads of Jacob, and you rulers of the house of Israel, is it not for you to know justice? You who hate good and love evil, who strip the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, flay their skin from them, break their bones, and chop them in pieces like meat for the pot, like flesh in the cauldron. Zephaniah 3:3. Her princes in her midst are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves that leave not a bone till morning. And this also reminds me how in Peter makes mention that the enemy is after us as a roaring lion as well. So we know that the Messiah is also considered or made mention or reference to as the lion of Judah. But enemy copying everything, right? He's also a roaring lion, and the princes that are in her midst, which are from the seed of Hasatan, clearly, are also roaring lions. And we see also in verse 7, just want to read something really quick that Jessica shared. So crazy, I was literally meditating on this yesterday, on the blood and sacrifice and basically everything you touched on. Oh, wow. And yes, crazy how we're not supposed to eat meat with blood because we are the temple and life is in it. Absolutely. And that is throughout the Torah over and over. And we see it even in the book of Acts when the new converts came to Jerusalem. Well, no, Paul came to the council of Jerusalem asking, how to address the new converts. And one of the things that the council, meaning James and Peter, gave is one of the things was immediately is make sure that they don't eat things with blood in it. So very, very important. There is a deep mystery with that. But let's continue. Verse 7. In you they have made light of father and mother. In your midst they have oppressed the stranger. In you they have mistreated the fatherless and the widow. Again, breaking Torah. We have Exodus 20, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Most High, your Elohim, is giving you. We also see it in Leviticus 20, verse 9. For everyone who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He has cursed his father or his mother, his blood shall be upon him. And again, the connection with blood, it's yes, while it's still physical, it is very spiritual because of the covenant. You made a covenant with your father, and that's why it's mentioned over and over again, your blood shall be upon you if you break this covenant. Deuteronomy 5:16, honor your father and your mother as the Adon, your Elohim, has commanded you, that your days may be long and that it may be well with you in the land which the Adon, your Elohim, is giving you, as well as Deuteronomy 27, verse 16, cursed is the one who treats his father or his mother with contempt. And all the people shall say, Amen. And they did indeed say Amen over and over and over again. Therefore, when they broke that, the blood was in their hands. We also see in Exodus 22, verse 22, you shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. Jeremiah 5:28, they have grown fat, they are sleek, Yes, they surpass the deeds of the wicked. They do not plead the cause of the fatherless, yet they prosper. And the right of the needy they do not defend. So we see how important this is for our Father. It is basically loving your neighbor as yourself. We see the importance of this throughout the Torah. Jeremiah, I mean, Ezekiel 22, verse 25. The conspiracy of her prophets in her midst is like a roaring lion tearing the prey. They have devoured people, they have taken treasure and precious things, they have made many widows in her midst. As well as Malachi 3, verse 5. And I will come near you for judgment. I will be a swift witness against sorcerers, against adulterers, against perjurers, against those who exploit wage earners and widows and orphans, and against those who turn away an alien because they do not fear me, says the Adonai of hosts. And again, I know it's very repetitive and redundant, but I wanted to make sure you guys understand how important it is to keep his commandments. Keep my commandments and live, right? Verse 8. Again, he's reminding them, you have despised my holy things and profaned my Sabbaths. And I know Stephanie already went into depth with the sign between us and the Most High, meaning keeping his holy set apart day, his Sabbath. So I'm not going to get too deep into this, but we do know that it is throughout scriptures for us to keep the Sabbath. We see it on Leviticus 19, verse 30, you shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Adon. And again, Stephanie already covered it, but I just want to reiterate this one. Ezekiel 20:20, hallow my Sabbaths, and they will be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am the Adon, your Elohim. Verse 9, in you are men who slander to cause bloodshed. In you are those who eat on the mountains. In your midst, they commit lewdness. So I do want to point out to who eat on the mountains. But before I show that, I just want to connect that to Leviticus 19, verse 16. You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people, nor shall you take a stand against the life of your neighbor. I am the Adon. And we also see it in Jeremiah 9, verse 4. Everyone take heed to his neighbor and do not trust any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanderers. So again, I do want to point out, in case you guys are not sure what that means, anyone who eats on the mountains in the context of this verse. So we see that in the Bible, specifically in this chapter, and also as well as chapter 18 of Ezekiel, it means that a person has not participated basically in pagan worship rituals that involved offering sacrifices and eating meals on high places, essentially signifying that they have not worshipped false idols or engaged in idolatrous practices at these designated sites. So in other words, by saying has not eaten on the mountains, like on the opposite hand, right? It means that it is emphasizing that a righteous person does not engage in such pagan worship and remains faithful to the true Elohim. So wanted to read that out to you guys to make better sense of what it is that you are reading here. He is saying again, in you are those who eat on the mountains. In other words, it's those that are committing paganism, idolatry, following after pagan gods. So yes, in today's age, in today's day, participating in pagan customs such as holidays that we know stem from paganism will be considered those who eat on the mountain. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand that. So we see on verse 10 where it says, in you men uncover their father's nakedness. In you they violate women who are set apart during their impurity. And again, this is Torah. So let's go back to that. Again, uncover their father's nakedness. And again, violating women in the time of their impurity, we know that that's during their cycle. So we have Leviticus 18, verses 7 and verse 19. The nakedness of your father or the nakedness of your mother you shall not uncover. She is your mother, you shall not uncover her nakedness. Verse 19, also you shall not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness as long as she is in her customary impurity. And again, this is her cycle. So it is a big no-no not to uncover the woman's nakedness, or in other words, get intimate with this woman while she's in her cycle. It is throughout the Torah. There's a reason why not only is it physically unclean, it is very spiritually unclean, because again, Jessica said it, there is life in the blood. And if y'all been with me since Genesis, y'all know what's up, the sin in Eden. But let's continue. Leviticus 20, verse 11 and 18. The man who lies with his father's wife has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. If a man lies with a woman during her sickness, again, this is her cycle, and uncovers her nakedness, he has exposed her flow, and she has uncovered the flow of her blood. Both of them shall be cut off from their people. So we see how important it is. It is reiterated over and over again. And I did want to make sure that you guys understand that the nakedness of uncovering the father's nakedness is indeed the mother's nakedness. And we're going to see that in Leviticus 18, verse 9. The nakedness, wait, no. Let me see if did I put it here? I don't think I did. Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, well, it kind of says it here too. The man who lies with his father's wife has uncovered his father's nakedness. There you go. But I know there's a more specific verse that says the nakedness, uncovering your father's nakedness is basically uncovering your mother's nakedness. So when it says that, that's what that means. So I just wanted to point that out. And again, this Stephanie had read it, Ezekiel 18, verse 6. If he has not eaten on the mountains, again, this has to do with participating in pagan worship, right? Nor lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, nor defiled his neighbor's wife, nor approached a woman during her impurity. Verse 11, and does none of those duties, but has eaten on the mountains or defiled his neighbor's wife. Yes, Sylvie. She said, makes sense since man is the head of woman. Absolutely. And again, I'm going to read this Leviticus 18, 9, 15, and verse 20. The nakedness of your sister, the daughter of your father, or the daughter of your mother, whether born at home or elsewhere, their nakedness you shall not uncover. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Moreover, you shall not lie carnally with your neighbor's wife to defile yourself with her. In other words, don't commit adultery. Don't commit incest. It's disgusting in the eyes of the Most High. And this is basically what the Most High is dealing with Israel, with the house of Israel. Again, what he's talking about adultery, yes, it's spiritual because of the fact that they broke the covenant with him, but it's also what they're doing in that breaking the covenant. They're actually doing these things. Sin is a transgression of the law. What is the law? What is the law stating over and over again? What to do and what not to do. So this is basically what they're breaking. And in that, yes, they are violating the Most High's commandments. We see in verse 11, and I have read, by the way, Leviticus 18 already, but it's already here on verse 11. One commits abomination with his neighbor's wife, another lewdly defiles his daughter-in-law, and another in you violates his sister, his father's daughter. And that's literally what we just read in Leviticus 18, not to do that. And they're literally doing that. Yes, they are physical acts of sinning against this Torah, absolutely. We see in verse 12, well, before we read, I wanted to read Jeremiah 5:8. They were like well-fed, lusty stallions. Everyone neighed after his neighbor's wife. So again, they were breaking Torah like Torah never even existed to begin with. Verse 12, in you they take bribes to shed blood. You take usury and increase. You have made profit from your neighbors by extortion and have forgotten me, says the Adon, your Elohim. And this is huge. This is huge for the Most High, because again, he has told you to take care of your neighbor, to love your neighbor over and over again. And we see for verse 12, We have Exodus 23, verse 8, and you shall take no bribe, very specific, for a bribe blinds the discerning and perverts the words of the righteous. We see it in Deuteronomy 16, 19. You shall not pervert justice, you shall not show partiality, nor take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. It is imperative that we understand that and we bind these words between the eyelets of the front of our eyes, right? Between our eyes, basically. What is English? And bind them in our hands, meaning thoughts and actions. Put it to action. And study so much the Torah that you know exactly what you ought to do inwardly. Inwardly. It should come natural to you not to do these things. And that's what Israel was doing clearly because it was not in their hearts. They were far away from him. Deuteronomy 27, verse 25. Cursed is the one who takes a bribe to slay an innocent person, and all the people shall say, Amen. And again, every time he would give a commandment, he would give the Torah. This was Deuteronomy, we know by this point. This was said so many times over and over again, and people were saying Amen over and over again, generations after new generations saying over and over again. This was a covenant, and people were breaking it. We have Micah chapter 7, verses 2 to 3. The faithful man has perished from the earth, and there is no one upright among them. No one. They all lie in wait for blood. Every man hunts his brother with a net, that they may successfully do evil with both hands. The prince asks for gifts, the judge seeks a bribe, and the great man utters his evil desire, so they scheme together. Exodus 22, verse 25, if you lend money to any of my people who are poor among you, you shall not be like a money lender to him. You shall not charge him interest. You see how the Torah is so specific with the details, and yet, what did they do? They went to do evil, asking for bribes, asking for gifts, uttering evil, everything, scheming, even scheming together, and how to do these things. Let me catch up with the chat. Oh, wow, Silvana. Yes, lawlessness, I mean, lawlessness still abounds, and even more so in our age. Yes, Jessica, it's like you see the result of sinning against his Torah. You are cursed, and it clearly manifests. And that is literally why we see this nation, or as a matter of fact, not only this nation, the entire world, operating under a curse, unless we break it and we come out of it. That's why we're called to come out of it, my people. And yes, Stephanie, making Mammon their Elohim. Mammon meaning the god of money. The god of money. That is literally what that means. And we also have Exodus 22, verse 25. If you lend money to any of my people who, oh, I read that already, sorry. Deuteronomy 32, 18. Of the rock who begot you, you are unmindful and have forgotten the Elohim who fathered you. In other words, you are unmindful of the person you weren't in covenant with who fathered you. Psalm 106, verse 21, they forgot their Elohim, their Savior, who had done great things in Egypt. Like, how could they ever forget, right? But they did. They forget. Jeremiah 3:21. A voice was heard on the desolate heights, weeping and supplications of the children of Israel. For they have perverted their way. They have forgotten the Elohim, their Most High. And again, Ezekiel 23, we'll read it shortly, but therefore thus says the Most High, because you have forgotten me and cast me behind your back, therefore you shall bear the penalty of your lewdness and your harlotry. We see on verse 13, behold, therefore I beat my fists at the dishonest prophet which you have made, and at the bloodshed which has been in your midst. And again, I can see the Most High just doing this, like, like as a parent, when you warn your child over and over and over, don't do that, don't do this. If you do that, this is going to happen. If you don't do this, this is what will happen, etc. And then they do it over and over again. You're like, I told you. I didn't want to do this, but it's coming to you. And we see, again, this is the same language was last week. We saw it in chapter 21. I also will beat my fists together, and I will cause my fury to rest. I, the Adon, have spoken. And again, that's part of the Most High's emotions. He is angry. There's fury. And we see throughout the book of the Kings, if you guys have studied the book of the Kings, after every unrighteous king that brought Israel or the house of Judah to sin and brought them back to abominations, you see that the Most High would still reiterate and go back and remind them the covenant. And even after reminding them, they would go back to do those things. So it's like, I can only imagine his frustration. As a parent, I don't even, honestly, as a parent, I would have given up. I would have. But the Most High, we actually see his mercy, like Stephanie has been saying over and over again. It's crazy how people would read the Old Testament, read the prophets, and can't see his mercy. They see, oh, this he was such a mean God in the Old Testament. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. For him to get to this point is because, man, he was running out of patience at that point. Verse 14, can your heart endure? Or can your hands remain strong in the days when I shall deal with you? I, the Adon, have spoken and will do it. And again, we see that language being spoken of in the previous weeks on Ezekiel 21, verse 7. And it shall be when they say to you, who are you sighing? That you shall answer, because of the news. When it comes, every heart will melt, all hands will be feeble, every spirit will faint, and all knees will be weak as water. Behold, it is coming and shall be brought to pass, says the Adon your Elohim. And again, you see that on Ezekiel 17. I'm not going to read it, but Ezekiel 17:24 has the same language. And very similar to what we spoke, and as well as in the book of Enoch, in the day of judgment, how people will be reacting, right? I see Yasmin shared Revelation 3:19. I'm going to read it. Those whom I love, I rebuke and discipline. So be earnest and repent. Yes. And as well as Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Thank you for sharing those, Yasmin. Absolutely. And that's literally what the entire house of Israel, including Judah, were doing in this time of Ezekiel prophesying. And so we see verse 15, where it says, I will scatter you among the nations, disperse you throughout the countries, and remove your filthiness completely from you. It is a promise that he had already prophesied way before the times of Ezekiel. We see that in Deuteronomy in chapter 4, verse 27. And the Most High will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where the Adon will drive you. Again, and this was if they would break the covenant, right? We see in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 8, when they came back, this is already when the house of Judah comes back, they find the Torah through Ezra, and they come back to the land. Nehemiah says, remember, I pray the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. So this is a reminder for them in that time. Ezekiel 20, verse 23. Also, I raised my hand in an oath to those in the wilderness that I would scatter them among the Gentiles and disperse them throughout the country. So again, the Most High reminding them over and over again, remember, I gave you warning of this. Remember. And again, Zechariah 7:14. But I scattered them with a whirlwind among all the nations which they had not known. Thus the land became desolate after them, so that no one passed through or returned, for they made the pleasant land desolate. As well as we will be reading in Ezekiel 23, 27, and 20 and 48. Thus I will make you cease your lewdness and your harlotry brought from the lands of Egypt, so that you will not lift your eyes to them, nor remember Egypt anymore. Thus I will cause lewdness to cease from the land, that all women may be taught not to practice your lewdness. And I know I'm reading Ezekiel over and over again, but it's you know how I like to say, repetition is key. So we will be reading over and over again. Psalms 119, verse 119. You put away all the wicked of the earth like dross. Therefore, I love your testimonies. And I think this is pertaining, yes, sorry, I read that ahead of time. This is pertaining to verse 18, which we have not read. So, Stephanie, can you read now 17? You know what? Just finish reading 17, and then we will continue breaking everything down.
Okay. The word of the Most High came to me, saying, Son of man, the house of Israel has become dross to me. They are all bronze, tin, iron, and lead in the midst of a furnace. They have become dross from silver. Therefore, thus says the Most High, your Elohim, because you have all become dross, therefore, behold, I will gather you into the midst of Jerusalem. As men gather silver, bronze, iron, lead, and tin into the midst of a furnace to blow fire on it, to melt it, so I will gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. Yes, I will gather you and blow on you with the fire of my wrath, and you shall be melted in its midst. As silver is melted in the midst of a furnace, so shall you be melted in its midst. Then you shall know that I, the Adon, have poured out my fury on you. And the word of the Most High came to me, saying, Son of man, say to her, You are a land that is not cleansed, or rained on in the day of indignation. The conspiracy of her prophets in her midst is like a roaring lion tearing the prey. They have devoured people, they have taken treasure and precious things, they have made many widows in her midst. Her priests have violated my law and profaned my holy things. They have not distinguished between the holy and unholy, nor have they made known the difference between the unclean and the clean. And they have hidden their eyes from my Sabbaths, so that I am profaned among them. Her princes in her midst are like wolves tearing the prey, to shed blood, to destroy people, and to get dishonest gain. Her prophets plastered them with untempered mortar, seeing false visions and divining lies for them, saying, Thus says the Adon Elohim, when the Most High had not spoken. The people of the land have used oppressions, committed robbery, and mistreated the poor and needy, and they wrongfully oppress the stranger. So I thought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found no one. Therefore, I have poured out my indignation on them. I have consumed them with the fire of my wrath, and I have recompensed their deeds on their own heads, says the Most High Elohim.
Amen. All right, so we have this section. He's already talking about what's going to happen not only to Israel, but also to the leaders of Israel. So verse 18, where it says, Son of man, the house of Israel has become dross to me. They are all bronze, tin, iron, and lead in the midst of a furnace. They have become dross from silver. I want to correlate that because there's a few precepts that make mention of this. Like I had already read ahead of time, Psalms 119, verse 119. Um, the wicked of the earth are like dross, right? We saw that comparison, right? So Isaiah 122, your silver has become dross, your wine mixed with water. We also see Jeremiah 6:28. They are all stubborn rebels, walking as slanderers. They are bronze and iron. They are all corrupters. So we see this comparison again and again with the dross, with the bronze, with the iron, with people that are full of corruption, right? We see Lamentations 4, verse 1, how the gold has become dim. How changed the fine gold. The stones of the sanctuary are scattered at the head of every street. And again, we know that gold is what he uses for the tabernacle. Gold is like the most valued um, metal, I guess, in the eyes of the Most High. We know, like at the New Jerusalem, it's referred as having streets of gold, right? So we know gold is very pure. So, however, here he's saying your gold has become dim. So basically, lost its purity or its gold, or I mean, not obviously it's gold, but you know what I mean. Proverbs 17, verse 3, the refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Adon tests the heart. And I think it's important to observe the verbiage here because again, we know that gold is something of value to him. So if the gold is not the value, that he is seeking in it, he's going to put it in the furnace. Because by putting it in the furnace, the gold is going to get, like how we always talk about stones like diamonds, for example, any type of stone, when in order to become that stone, it needs to be taken through the fire, as well as silver, as well as gold. It needs to be melted for that gold to come about. Yes, Stephanie, to remove the accumulated dross, to remove like even like rings, when you have like wedding bands, right? With time, you have to take it back to get polished and to get, because it does get it loses its like the shiny component that it has. It doesn't look as bright. So the refining pot, it's a metaphor, but we know that it's what the Most High does with us, for us. And yes, even the comparison of the potter breaking the clay. Yes, that video was so beautiful. Breaking the clay to melt it and then remold it again is basically what he is making reference of here with this gold. And again, we have Isaiah 48:10. Behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. And this topic keeps coming back up. If you guys were with me when we did the study of the refiner's fire, taken off of Malachi, we know that the purpose of fire is truly to purify us. And a beautiful reminder, as always, it's always going to come up, Zechariah 13:9. I will bring the 1/3 through the fire, will refine them as silver is refined, and test them as gold is tested. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, this is my people. And each one will say, the Adon is my God, my Elohim. How beautiful it is to know that he cares for us enough to take us through that fire so that we don't go through this judgment that he is prophesying here through Ezekiel. We see in verse 20, as men gather silver, bronze, iron, lead, and tin into the midst of a furnace to blow fire on it, to melt it, so I will gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. And I know it can get a little bit confusing, because every time we think of this, we think of judgment, right? We think of the purpose of this prophecy per se. He's telling you, like, get ready, get ready. I'm gonna melt you. I'm gonna bring you to naught, right? I'm gonna bring you down to the lake of fire. However, I do see how this is twofold in it, because we know that the day of judgment is not only gonna be to take those that are completely cut off, but it's also to take those to be purified and to actually make it into the New Jerusalem. So we know that the anger of his fury, and I believe even in the book of Enoch, it gives more insight of that, of the judgment, and how it will purify those that are not in covenant yet as of that day, right? So I do believe that there is a connection with the fire, even for those yet to be in covenant in the day of judgment. Not all is to be just thrown in the lake of fire onto eternal damnation. At least I don't believe so. Because when you see throughout scriptures, you see that the purpose of the fire and this fury that he will pour over mankind is for exactly that purpose. We see Isaiah 1 verse 25, I will turn my hand against you and thoroughly purge away your dross. Again, what Stephanie was making mention of. And take away all your alloy. So again, the purpose of that fire is to purify you and remove iniquity and remove all those nasty transgressions. We see it also in Jeremiah 9 verse 7. Therefore, thus says the Adon, your Elohim, your Adon of hosts, behold, I will refine them and try them. For how shall I deal with the daughter of my people? Again, how else shall he do it if not taking us through the fire? Yes, even in the sense of it being voluntary on the people's end, because they know what the result will be, purification. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have on verse 22, as silver is melted in the midst of a furnace, so shall you be melted in its midst, when you shall know that I, the Adon, have poured out my fury on you. And we see that in Ezekiel 20 last week. verse 8:33, but they rebelled against me and would not obey me. They did not at all cast away the abominations which were before their eyes, nor did they forsake the idols of Egypt. Then I said, I will pour out my fury on them and fulfill my anger against them in the midst of the land of Egypt. Verse 33, as I live, says the Adon Elohim, surely with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, and with fury poured out, I will rule over you. So right there you see, this is what I was trying to tell you guys. And this is again why I believe this fire that he is speaking of is clearly to purify you, because if not, then why else would he say this? And with fury poured out, I will rule over you. Rule over you, we know that this is when he tabernacles with us. So in other words, he brings his fury with fire, like like kind of like what I envision a parent when we've lost all patience already, like disciplining our children, like, you're gonna learn now, like I tried this with you, I gave you warning, I did this, I did my best to try to bring you into understanding, but you did not get it, therefore you're gonna hear it now, you're gonna get it now, so here's the discipline. So you bring the discipline, but yet you don't leave your child behind. You discipline your child, but you're gonna still be the parent, like you're bringing that child with you, right? Let's say the let's say the consequence was you're gonna be without your phone, you're gonna be whatever, right? They're gonna be punished, but they're still gonna be under your protection, they're still gonna be under your covering, if that makes sense. So yes, you still love them. So that's kind of like what I see from this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's, you guys tell me, what do you see? Because I see the fury connecting with that. He's pouring out this fury, yet he's ruling over them. I don't know if that makes sense, but again, that's kind of like what I see. And again, we see that idea in Hosea chapter 5, verse 10. The princes of Judah are like those who remove a landmark. I will pour out my wrath on them like water. And again, we know that water cleanses. So just wanted to reiterate that. It's not just the fire purifying, but he's speaking of wrath, connecting it with water. And we know the whole idea with water is the cleansing, right? So yes. So yes, I see Stephanie agreeing. She says, I see it too, especially knowing the long-suffering aspect of his nature. Absolutely. And that's why I keep saying, that's what I see as a parent. I cannot see him any other way than that, right? Obviously, I'm not trying to compare myself as he is the father of, like he is a heavenly father. He is the most high, our creator. But I guess I can kind of like identify one of his aspects in that sense. So now we have, in pertaining to the wicked leaders, the judgment to the wicked leaders, we see verse 24, Son of man, say to her, you are a land that is not cleansed or rained on in the day of indignation. And this is speaking to Jerusalem with its wicked leaders. Jerusalem being the holy city, right? So we see verse 24, we have Isaiah 9, verse 13, for the people do not turn to him who strikes them, nor do they seek the Adon of hosts. We also see it in Jeremiah 2, verse 30. In vain have I chastened your children. They received no correction. Your sword has devoured your prophets like a destroying lion. So again and again and again, reiterating, I've been correcting them, warning them, right? We also see Ezekiel 24:13. In your filthiness is lewdness, because I have cleansed you, and you were not cleansed. You will not be cleansed of your filthiness anymore, till I have caused my fury to rest upon you. So again, I see it here, guys. I don't know if you guys see it. He's telling them, even though I try to clean you, you were not cleansed, right? And I'm telling you, from this point on, you will not be cleansed anymore until, again, my furies rest upon you. So he's giving, it's almost like he's saying, there's going to be a break from me even trying with you guys. I'm not even going to try with you, but there will be that day of judgment where my fury will rest upon you. And in that is where I see the connection with till. Till means until. So he's saying, you will not be cleansed of your filthiness anymore until. So what does that mean to me in plain English? What I can see with that connection, till, means that I will cleanse you then with my fury. What I didn't clean, what I wasn't able to clean back then with water, that day with my fury, I will clean with fire. That's kind of like what I get from this. Again, if you guys see it otherwise, please share. Yes, Sylvie, I see your hand being raised. Please speak.
So for the 1/3 that it's going through the fire,
Yes.
right? Or from everybody that's going through the fire and the 1/3 that makes it. So is this for the rest?
So I believe this is my understanding. When it speaks about the 1/3 going through the fire, I believe this is speaking specifically of the elect that goes through the fire now, meaning we're going through the fire spiritually now. For the rest, I believe will be the day of judgment. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? Or
So
anybody wants
is
to
that
add?
his theory, like the day of judgment?
I believe his fury is connected to the day of judgment.
Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify
Like,
because I'm
yeah.
like, which one? Like those that obviously don't, even when he's, it's like, think about it. When you punish your kids and you try to enforce, your rules and whatever, sometimes your kids, even at that point, they still do whatever they want. They still go the other way. And you're like, even when you're like enforcing it to the max.
Which is,
So,
yes, yes, which is why I believe this verse 13 of chapter 24 here makes sense to me because he's saying, I have cleansed you, you were not cleansed. It's basically what you're saying. Like you corrected your child, you gave them the ultimatums, and they still didn't listen, right? So
mhm.
that to me, this is what this means to me. I have cleansed you, but you were not cleansed, right? You will not be cleansed of your filthiness anymore. It's like as a parent, like you gave up on even trying. But then he's saying, until this is what that word there means, till I have caused my fury to rest upon you. And again, I'm not I'm not trying to say I know it all and I understand it all, which is why I want to see where you guys are getting, what you guys are seeing with this. I do believe there will be a short period of time between the day of trumpet at the last trump, right, when Messiah comes, and those 10 days between that, okay, so at the last trump, 10 days between that day and the day of judgment, that they'll have that time, his fury will pour out, right? And they'll have that time, which is kind of what I see with those that will be beheaded or whatever it is that they have to go through. That's what I understand from that. Let me see, Jessica saying something. I feel like it's even he has dignity, and though he's merciful at a certain point, he's not going to let his people walk over him. Yes, by ignoring his correction over and over. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yasmin, your question was we'll suffer today and now, but on the day of wrath we won't. So I believe that those that are purified now, meaning the dross is removed from us now, I don't believe we'll go through that wrath. I believe we'll be caught up in the heavens with him if we are. Remember that in the book of Revelation it speaks that there's the elect that comes out of the tribulation wearing the white linen garments. And then John asks the questions to the angel, and the angel basically says those are they who wash their clothing in the blood of the lamb. Again, the blood, meaning they went in covenant with him, meaning they are now walking in righteousness, meaning they are keeping the commandments, they have the seal, the sign, right, of keeping his Sabbaths holy, etc., etc. Yes, exactly. It's also mentioned in Second Esdras, I believe. Yes. Um, yes, absolutely. So let's continue. I love all the questions and I love the participation. I love it. I love it. This is the point of coming together in fellowship. Um, so let's continue. We were on I lost track. Where were we? Verse 22? No, verse 25. Oh, I have it highlighted here, right? No, I haven't covered
Yes,
25.
it was
24.
no, we covered 24.
Yes, yes, the connections of 24. I just didn't read
The
Zephaniah.
last one was the Ezekiel 24:13.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I got a little confused there. So Zephaniah 3 and 2 concerning, I mean, in regards to verse 24. We have she has not obeyed his voice, she has not received correction, what you guys were saying, right? She has not trusted in the Adon, she has not drawn near to her Elohim. So this is basically a daughter or a son that didn't receive the correction and broke the covenant. All right, so now verse 25. The conspiracy of her prophets in her midst is like a roaring lion tearing the prey. They have devoured people, they have taken treasure and precious things, they have made many widows in her midst. Again, many widows. That's making a mockery of his commandments, basically. We see in Jeremiah 11, verse 9, and the Adon said to me, a conspiracy has been found among the men of Judah and among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And again, this has to do, what the portion we're really reading has to be with the judgment to the city Jerusalem. Hosea 6 and 9, as bands of robbers lie in wait for men, so the company of priests murder on the way to Shechem. Surely they commit lewdness. We also see Messiah making mention of this in Matthew 23, verse 14. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore, you will receive greater condemnation. So, again, what was is what is, and what is, it's what shall become. There's nothing new under the sun. The same exact thing that was happening in the times of Ezekiel is exactly what Messiah later comes and condemns the scribes and the Pharisees for. We see Micah 3, verse 11. Her heads judge for a bribe, her priests teach for a pay. Sounds familiar, right? And her prophets divine for money. Yet they lean on the Adon and say, is not the Adon among us? No harm can come upon us. I don't know if that sounds so like current, like my goodness. Churchianity in a nutshell right there. And then we also see in Zephaniah 3 verses 3 to 4. I believe I read 3 already before, but I'm going to read it again. Her princes in her midst are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves that leave not a bone till morning. Her prophets are insolent, treacherous people. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. That part to me always gets me. They have done violence to the law, meaning what they are being condemned for is for breaking the law. Like you literally took the Torah, the perfect covenant, and you did the exact opposite, which means they did violence to the law. Like you know, it's in a very nasty language. It's basically you kind of like urinated all over it, basically, right? Well, I'm trying to keep it clean, but you know what I mean. Verse 26. Her priests have violated my law and profaned my holy things. They have not distinguished between the holy and unholy, nor have they made known the difference between the unclean and the clean, and they have hidden their eyes from my Sabbaths, so that I am profaned among them. Again, that word violated my law is there clearly. They basically took everything that was Kodesh, that was holy, and made it completely quite the opposite, completely unclean. Verse 26, we have Jeremiah 32, verse 32. Because of all the evil of the children of Israel and the children of Judah, which they have done to provoke me to anger, they, their kings, their princes, their priests, their prophets, the men of Judah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. We also see it in Lamentations 4, verse 3. Even the jackals present their breasts to nurse their young, but the daughter of my people is cruel, like ostriches in the wilderness. Comparing that to an ostrich in the wilderness, I'm assuming it's because that one doesn't nurse her child or something, because we see the comparison here. So Malachi 2, verse 8, but you have departed from the way, you have caused many to stumble at the law. You have corrupted the covenant of Levi, says the Adon of hosts. And we know that that is exactly what some teachers do today. They cause them to stumble at the law, unfortunately. We also see that happen, that took place with what was his name? The priest. What was his name? I can't remember right now. But the priest that raised Samuel. I'm thinking it wasn't Levi. It's something. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? But we see it in 1 Samuel 2:29. Why do you kick at my sacrifice and my offering, which I have commanded in my dwelling place, and honor your sons more than me? His name was Eli. Yes, thank you. It sounds so familiar to Levi. That's why I was like, it's not Levi, it's something short. Eli, yes. So Eli's, if you have read the book of Samuel, you know that Eli was a priest And though he was righteous, his sons were not. They were making a mockery of the temple. And Eli covered for their sins, which is why the Most High tells him there, why do you kick at my sacrifice and my offering, which I have commanded in my dwelling place, and honor your sons more than me, to make yourselves fat with the best of all the offerings of Israel, my people? And we know what the end of that was with Eli. He ended up losing his sons, and then later he died as well. We also see in Leviticus 10, verse 10, that you may distinguish between the holy and unholy, and between the unclean and the clean. I didn't put the whole precept there, but basically he was giving the commandments. He was giving the specifics to the Torah. So for this purpose and this purpose only. So that was the purpose of the Torah. And we see right here that they were doing quite the opposite of that, though they knew it. Verse 27, her princes in her midst are like wolves, tearing the prey, to shed blood, to destroy people, and to get dishonest gain. And again, we see Isaiah 1:23, your princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. Everyone loves bribes. I think we had already read that. Yes, we had. Let's continue. Ezekiel 22:6, look, the princes of Israel, each one has used his power to shed blood in you. So again, abuse of authority is what was taking place there. Micah 3:1-3, and then 9-11. And I said, hear now, O heads of Jacob, and you rulers of the house of Israel, is it not for you to know justice? You who hate good and love evil, who strip the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, flay their skin from them, break their bones, and chop them in pieces, like meat for the pot, like flesh in the cauldron. Now hear this, you heads of the house of Jacob and rulers of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and pervert all equity, who build up Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with iniquity. Her heads judge for a bribe, her priests teach for pay, and her prophets divine for money. I believe we've read all of this, yet they lean on the Adon and say, yes, we did read all of it, but repetition is key. Zephaniah 3:3 we had read as well. So I wanted to connect all of that with what later Paul tells Timothy in 1 Timothy 6:3-7, because it really connects. If anyone teaches otherwise and does not consent to wholesome words, even the words of our Adon, Yahshua HaMashiach, and to the doctrine which accords with godliness, he is proud, knowing nothing, but is obsessed with disputes and arguments over words. Look at the comparison here, guys. From which come envy, strife, reviling, evil suspicions, useless wranglings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, who suppose that godliness is a means of gain. From such withdraw yourself. Now godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. Oof, that Bible verse always gets to me, because it's literally what we see today. And my goodness. Let's remember the words of Ezekiel, the warnings of it, of the Most High through Ezekiel, because again, it is literally what's taking place right now. And let's remember that the whole point of this warning is so that they could return to him, repent and return to him, because the judgment was going to befall. Obviously, in the times of Ezekiel, this warning was specifically to the house of Judah, that they were already in captivity and that the destruction was to befall on them. But however, as we've been teaching and learning together, all these prophecies are twofold, all of them. So verse 28, her prophets plastered with untempered mortar, seeing false visions and divining lies for them, saying, thus says the Adon Elohim, when the Adon had not spoken. Again, so relatable. In Ezekiel, we saw in Ezekiel 13:6-7, and as well as 10, they have envisioned futility and false divination, saying, thus says the Adon, but the Adon has not sent them. Yet they hope that the word may be confirmed. Have you not seen a futile vision, and have you not spoken false divination? You say the Adon says, but I have not spoken. Because they have seduced my people, saying peace, when there is no peace, and one builds a wall and they plaster it with untempered mortar. Crazy how it connects with today's day. Jeremiah 23, 25 through 32. I have heard what the prophets have said, who prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. How long will this be in the heart of the prophets who prophesy lies? Indeed, they are prophets of deceit of their own heart, who try to make my people forget my name by their dreams, which everyone tells his neighbor, as their fathers forgot my name for Baal. Oof. The prophet who has a dream, let him tell a dream. And he who has my word, let him speak my word faithfully. What is the chaff of the wheat? Says the Adon. Is not my word like a fire? Ooh, that reminds me of that. My word is in Hebrews, my word is a consuming fire, right? Says the Adon. And like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces. Therefore, behold, I am against the prophets, says the Adon, who steal my words, every one from his neighbor. Before I am against the prophets, says the Adon, who use their tongues and say, he says. Behold, I am against those who prophesy false dreams, says the Adon, and tell them, and cause my people to err by their lies and by their recklessness. Yet I did not send them or command them. Therefore, they shall not profit this people at all, says the Adon. Oof. Let's remember that, peoples. Let's remember that. We also see in Ezekiel 21, 29, while they see false visions for you, while they divine a lie to you, to bring you on the necks of the wicked, the slain whose day has come, whose iniquity shall end. Again, any person who's prophesying to you today, any person who's telling you, Abba showed me this vision, or gave me this dream, or da-da-da-da-da-da, let's test the spirits. That's what the word commands us to do. We test the spirits to see how much a person smells, looks, acts, whatever, like the Most High. Because any person today can tell you, thus says the Most High, or the Most High told me to tell you, or etc., etc. Let's make sure we are testing the spirits, meaning, and we have a guideline, meaning his perfect word to show us what his spirit looks like and acts like. Galatians 5 gives you a good summary of that. I'm going to read that, Stephanie. Hold on. Let me make this a little bit bigger. A connection to verse 30. Okay, I'm going to go back because I don't think I've read 30 yet, but I'm going to read 30 and then I'll make that connection. Because I think the last one I made was 28. Yes, it was 28. So let me do 29 and then I'll get to, but I'll read that in a second, okay? So 29, the people of the land have used oppressions, committed robbery, and mistreated the poor and needy, and they wrongfully oppressed the stranger. And we have some connections to 29, Exodus 23 and 9. Also, you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And it's in the Most High's heart that you do not oppress anyone, period. So understand that. Leviticus 19:33. And if a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. And again, it all goes back to loving your neighbor as yourself. All of it, all of it. Now, verse 30. Okay, let's go with 30. So I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it, for I found no one. Okay, and now I'm going to read the connection that Stephanie made to verse 30. She is saying, and the generation, okay, verse 30, and the generation breakers of this age who are rebuilding through his ruach and the word. Isaiah 58, 58 verses 12 through 14. And they shall be of thee, shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. Verse 13. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Adon, honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Adon, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Adon hath spoken it. I mean, I love that connecting precept there. That was again Isaiah chapter 58, verses 12 through 14, connecting through with verse 30. Thank you, Steph. I also have Isaiah 59 connecting with that, verse 16. He saw that there was no man and wondered that there was no intercessor. Therefore, his own arm brought salvation for him, and his own righteousness, it sustained him. And I love this precept because it says that he found no one, therefore his own arm, and we know who is his own arm, if not Mashiach, brought salvation for him. So yes, Isaiah 63 verse 5, I looked, but there was no one to help, and I wondered that there was no one to uphold. Therefore, my own arm brought salvation for me. Again, a connection with Messiah. And my own fury, it sustained me. So you see again that connection with his fury and salvation. I'm just saying, like, I feel like it just connects throughout. I also have Jeremiah 5 verse 1. Run to and fro through the streets of Jerusalem. See now and know, and seek in her open places if you can find a man, if there is anyone who executes judgment, who seeks the truth, and I will pardon her. And then we also have, and again, this has to do because this is talking about the streets of Jerusalem. And the judgment. And again, I do want to go back to, if anyone who executes judgment, who seeks the truth, I will pardon her. So you see another connection with judgment and repentance, basically, and him forgiving. So wanted to reiterate that. Again, Ezekiel 13 and 5, you have not gone up in the gaps to build a wall for the house of Israel, to stand in battle on the day of the Adon. And that all is connecting to verse 30. We also have Psalms 106, verse 23. Therefore, he said that he would destroy them, had not Moses, his chosen one, stood before him in the breach to turn away his wrath, lest he destroy them. And we know that Moses stood in the breach, meaning as an intercessor between the Most High and the people. We also see Jeremiah 15, verse 1. Then the Adon said to me, even if Moses and Samuel stood before me, my mind would not be favorable toward this place. Cast them out of my sight and let them go forth. And this is pertaining to Jerusalem, because again, the iniquity that he was finding there in that time, which is why, again, he says, I found no one. And we see that the person he sends in turn is our Messiah, to bring that, to be on that breach between his people and bring them back to salvation. So verse 31, therefore I have poured out my indignation on them. I have consumed them with the fire of my wrath, and I have recompensed their deeds on their own heads, says the Adon Elohim. We have Ezekiel 22, as silver is melted in the midst of a furnace, so shall you be melted in its midst. Then you shall know that I, the Adon, have poured out my fury on you. We had already read that, Ezekiel 9 and 10. And as for me also, my eye will neither spare nor will I have pity, but I will recompense their deeds on their own head. We also see Romans 2, verses 8 through 9. But to those who are self-seeking and do not obey the truth, this is key, but obey unrighteousness, indignation and wrath, tribulation and anguish on every soul of a man who does evil, of the Jew first and also of the Greek. And I believe this kind of answers the question you had, Yasmin, earlier in terms of the wrath of the day of judgment, because we know that for those that are obeying him now, the fire that makes reference in Zechariah 13 and 9 has to do with the purification now. We know that this final wrath, meaning the lake of fire, has to do now with those that are not in covenant, meaning disobeying his truth, meaning not obeying his commandments, right? Not walking in righteousness, meaning they are lawless, right? And so we see that to those, indignation and wrath will follow, right? On every soul of man who does evil. So I think that makes kind of like that clear distinction there. I hope that made sense. Okay, Jessica, I just saw your message. Who can read the next chapter? Because we are done with chapter 22.
I can if no one else can.
Thank you, Steph. And if it's, I mean, and I know this one is a little lengthier, but if you can at one point, I'll just take over, okay?
Okay.
So read 1 through 21. We're gonna read
Okay.
two sisters combined first.
Okay, I'll read through 21 and then Yasmin said she could read after if I can't. So that
Okay,
would be helpful, Yas, if you can.
perfect, thank you. So read through 21 right now.
Okay. The word of the Adon came again to me, saying, Son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother. They committed harlotry in Egypt. They committed harlotry in their youth. Their breasts were their embrace. Their virgin bosom was there pressed. Their names Oholah, the elder, and Oholibah, her sister. They were mine, and they bore sons and daughters. As for their names, Samaria is Oholah, and Jerusalem is Oholibah. Oholah played the harlot, even though she was mine, and lusted for her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians, who were clothed in purple, captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen riding on horses. Thus she committed her harlotry with them, all of them choice men of Assyria, and with all for whom she lusted. With all their idols she defiled herself. She has never given up her harlotry brought from Egypt. For in her youth they had lain with her, pressed her virgin bosom, and poured out their immorality upon her. Therefore I have delivered her into the hands of her lovers, into the hands of the Assyrians for whom she lusted. They uncovered her nakedness, took away her sons and daughters, and slew her with the sword. She became a byword among women, for they had executed judgment on her. Now, although her sister Oholibah saw this, she became more corrupt in her lust than she, and in her harlotry more corrupt than her sister's harlotry. She lusted for the neighboring Assyrians, captains and rulers, clothed most gorgeously, horsemen riding on horses, all of them desirable young men. Then I saw that she was defiled. Both took the same way. But she increased her harlotry. She looked at men portrayed on the wall, images of Chaldeans portrayed in vermilion, girded with belts around their waists, flowing turbans on their heads, all of them looking like captains, in the manner of the Babylonian of Chaldea, the land of their nativity. As soon as her eyes saw them, she lusted for them and sent messengers to them in Chaldea. Then the Babylonians came to her into the bed of love, and they defiled her with their immorality. So she was defiled by them and alienated herself from them. She revealed her harlotry and uncovered her nakedness. Then I alienated myself from her, as I had alienated myself from her sister. Yet she multiplied her harlotry in calling to remembrance the days of her youth, when she had played the harlot in the land of Egypt. For she lusted for her paramours, whose flesh is like the flesh of donkeys, and whose issue is like the issue of horses. Thus you call to remembrance the lewdness of your youth, when the Egyptians pressed your bosom because of your youthful breasts.
Okay, so a lot of metaphor language here
Lots.
of the two houses, and we're gonna get into that right now. So we have the two harlot sisters. Ooh, they are no bueno. So we see immediately, I just want to point to the names Oholah and Oholibah. I'm going to show it. I have it in a slide for you, but I'm going to show it here. It literally means Oholah means her own tabernacle, and Oholibah is literally my tabernacle is in her. So this is house of Israel, and this is house of Judah, because we know Judah is where Messiah came from. So, Silvana has a question. Is the first sister the people before the flood? No. This is speaking of the two houses. I'm going to show you I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to show you guys right now. So the two harlot sisters equals the two houses, or AKA the two kingdoms. And I'm going to give you a little bit of history really quickly because I have a lot to cover here so you guys can understand. In a nutshell, the whole kingdom of Israel was being ruled by Saul, and then David, and then his son Solomon. The whole, meaning all 12 tribes, right, were the whole house of Israel. After Solomon dies, because of Solomon's sin, the curse befell upon him, but came to his son. So Rehoboam and Jeroboam are fighting then between the split of the 12 tribes. So we see here in First Kings, I'm going to read it right now, First Kings 11:31 through 33. And he said to Jeroboam, take for yourself 10 pieces, for thus says the Adon, the Elohim of Israel, behold, I am about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and will give you 10 tribes. But he shall have one tribe for the sake of my servant David. And this is speaking of Judah. And for the sake of Jerusalem, the city that I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, because they have forsaken me and worshipped Ashtoreth, or that's also Asherah, I believe is called, that goddess, that I don't know if you guys recall, the goddess of the Sidonians, Shemosh, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of the Ammonites. And they have not walked in my ways, doing what is right in my sight, and keeping my statutes and my rules, as David his father did. So again, because of the sins of Solomon, the whole house of Israel is split into two kingdoms, or two houses. We see this was the whole land, Israel, with the capital Samaria, and Judah with the capital of Jerusalem. In Israel, Samaria came 10 of the tribes, which is what I underlined here. 10 of the tribes was encompassed the house of Israel, aka you're also going to see it referenced as a house of Joseph or Ephraim, Ephraim being the son of Joseph. For the house of Judah, which is what we know as the Jewish people, they came back to the land in Jerusalem, and they had with them actually the Benjamites also. So we have Judah and the Benjamites. And we know obviously the Levites, because the priests needed to be there. There's also some priests that went with the house of Israel. So they were split. But all in all, Judah took over the tribes, and they were known just as the house of Judah, which is why they were considered Jewish. Even the Levites in the times of Messiah were called the Jews, right? So is the house of Israel, these are the ones that went into Samaria and later were scattered. But we're going to get a little bit more into that. So just giving you a little bit of history so you understand what Ezekiel here is prophesying. And some graphics, because graphics help not only me, but also Sylvie and many of you as well. We know, again, Northern Kingdom, Kingdom of Israel, has 10 tribes. Southern Kingdom, Kingdom of Judah, includes the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. And always remember that includes the Levites. The kings of Israel that ruled over all the kingdom were, like I mentioned, were Saul, David, and Solomon. After Solomon, the kingdom is split. And here is a breakdown of all the kings that ruled each kingdom or each house. So we see Jeroboam takes the house of Israel with like we just read right now. He takes the 10 tribes. And then the southern kingdom, or the house of Judah, is taken by the son of Solomon, Rehoboam. And we know that most of these kings were unrighteous kings. We're going to see a few that were righteous as you study the word, but all in all, we know that they led both houses into captivity, meaning exile. The northern kingdom went into exile with Assyria, and the southern kingdom went into exile with Babylon. And so the time that Ezekiel is prophesying right now, they were, if I'm not mistaken, already in captivity. Steph, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they were they already in captivity in Babylon? I believe so, or were about to, either way. And so this is the timing of that. So again, the northern kingdom, aka the house of Israel or Ephraim, eventually established their capital in Samaria, and yet for over 200 years, the northern kingdom did not did nothing different than that of Solomon in the eyes of the Most High. In other words, they were completely a people out of covenant, trampling over the blood, basically, right, of the covenant. They disobeyed his laws and instructions and followed after other gods. It came to the point that the Most High no longer called them his people. And we see this eventually through the prophet Jeremiah, that he gives them a letter of divorce. Now, I want to speak of Samaria, or Oholah. So again, Samaria, just when I say Samaria, so you guys know, let's go back. Samaria is the northern kingdom, okay? The one with the 10 tribes. I feel like I'm in school here, but I want you guys to understand here. So Samaria, again, is northern kingdom, or Ephraim, with the 10 tribes. And I say Ephraim because Ephraim, just as Judah kind of takes over the name, empowered the southern kingdom, Ephraim, the tribe, empowered the house of Israel. And it's known throughout scriptures like that. So Ephraim now is referred to in Ezekiel as Samaria equals Oholah, meaning her own tabernacle, meaning they don't have any partaking with Messiah, nothing to do with the tabernacle. We see 2 Kings 17:6. In the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria, and he carried the Israelites away to Assyria and placed them in Halah and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of Medes. This is when they go into captivity again into Assyria. So in 721 BCE, the Most High had Assyria conquer Samaria, in other words, and take the northern kingdom, like I said, Ephraim. The king of Assyria then brought in foreign people into the land of Samaria. He later sent a priest back to teach them the ways of the Most High. The Most High warned Israel just before crossing the Jordan that this would happen if they didn't obey, but they ignored the covenant they had made with the Most High. So again, this is making reference, which is why you see them being considered harlot sisters, because they are a people out of covenant. And it's interesting that Samaria is considered the older sister. I'm going to break that down a little bit. Let me check the chat before I continue. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. They were being in the process of being exiled during the times of Ezekiel. Okay, perfect. Okay, let me continue. So are you guys understanding up to this point, Sylvie? Everyone, Anita, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure everyone understands. So let's continue. So Samaria is Oholah, or Oholah, sorry, I said Oholah, Oholah, her own tabernacle, right? And then we have Samaria, like I mentioned, being referred to the older one, which literally means the greater, because she made her first political and idolatrous alliances with foreign nations and was the first to be punished by going into captivity into Assyria. I believe that's why she is considered the older. Interestingly, the Most High also refers to Ephraim through Jeremiah, prophet Jeremiah later, as Ephraim being his firstborn. So I kind of see a connection with that. I don't know what you guys see here. Not only that, but Ephraim is the son of Joseph. We know from the 12 tribes, Joseph is given the firstborn rights. So I don't know. I think there's a connection with all of that. Again, we see now then Judah equals Oholibah, which is my tabernacle is in her. 2 Kings 17:18 and 19, we see therefore the Most High was very angry. Oh, I just realized I cut this graphic out, but yeah, that's an A there. Was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. None was left but the tribe of Judah only. Judah also did not keep the commandments of the Most High, their Elohim, but walked in the customs that Israel had introduced. And again, like I mentioned before, even though Judah is referred to as the tabernacle is in her, we know that she also, making reference to as a woman, but we know we're talking about a people, right? She also followed after her harlot sister, Ephraim, aka Samaria, right? So since the kingdom of Judah did not learn their lesson from the northern kingdom, it wasn't much longer that they were taken captive as well. Only difference that they were taken to Babylon, like I mentioned before. Went a little bit. Okay, so now let's do some connecting precepts. Again, Yes, Stephanie, Israel, my firstborn, my baby. And I believe Israel he was making reference of Israel as a whole. However, I don't know. I think there's connections with the house of Israel, and particularly being referenced to as the older sister. So let's connect verse 2. Son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother. Who were these two women? We see in Jeremiah 3, 7 through 8. Let me move this out of the way. And I said, after she had done all these things, return to me, but she did not return. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. Then I saw that for all the causes for which backsliding Israel had committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a certificate of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah did not fear, but went and played the harlot also. Again, we see it's all about a marriage. Messiah is coming back for the marriage supper of the Lamb. It's all a marriage, and it all has to do with a covenant, right? So when you are not in covenant, as was the case of the house of Israel, the Most High sent her away with a certificate of divorce, meaning broke the covenant. But we see that Judah followed right after. We also see that idea in Ezekiel 16, 44 through 46. Indeed, everyone who quotes Proverbs will use this proverb against you, like mother, like daughter. You are your mother's daughter, loathing husband and children, and you are the sister of your sisters, who loathed their husbands and children. Your mother was a Hittite and your father an Amorite, meaning Gentiles, right? People not in covenant. Verse 46. Your elder sister is Samaria. So there it makes reference again, who dwells with her daughters to the north of you. And your younger sister who dwells to the south of you, Sodom and her daughters, which here is speaking of Sodom. I know Stephanie did a really good job at explaining that, but we know in essence it's an example of what happened to Sodom and her daughters, but this is making reference of Judah, the house of Judah, which was dwelling in the south. So now we have for verse 3, they committed harlotry in Egypt, they committed harlotry in their youth, their breasts were there embraced, their virgin bosom was there pressed. We have Leviticus 17 and 7. They shall no more offer their sacrifices to demons after whom they have played the harlot. This shall be a statute forever for them throughout their generations. It's very clear, right? Joshua, I think this is Joshua. Yes, 24:14. Yes. Now therefore, fear the Adon, serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your father served on the other side of the river and in Egypt. Serve the Adon. That was in the contract of the marriage. Jeremiah 3, 9 through 10. So it came to pass through her casual harlotry that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and trees. Interesting verbiage here. Stones and trees reminds me of literal crosses and everything else that's pagan. You name it. And yet for all this, her treacherous sister Judah has not turned to me with her whole heart, but in pretense, says the Adon. Interestingly enough, it's exactly what Judah or the Jews were doing when Messiah came. They were worshiping him in pretense, but not from the heart, which is why he called out the Pharisees. Just wanted to point that out. Ezekiel 16, verse 22. And in all your abominations and acts of harlotry, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, struggling in your blood. We have verse 4. Their names Oholah, the older, and Oholibah, her sister. They were mine. And they bore sons and daughters. As for their names, Samaria is Oholah, and Jerusalem is Oholibah. I already explained that to you guys. But I want to read Jeremiah 3, 6 through 7. The Adon said also to me in the days of Josiah the king, have you seen what backsliding Israel has done? She has gone up on every high mountain and under every green tree, and there played the harlot, meaning going worshiping other gods, right? Or worshiping the gods of other nations, paganism. And I said, after she had done all these things, return to me, but she did not return. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. Not only did she see it, but we know she also did it, right? Ezekiel 16:8, when I passed by you again and looked upon you, indeed your time was the time of love. So I spread, isn't this beautiful, guys? I love this. So I spread my wing over you and covered your nakedness, meaning your shame, your sin. Yes, I swore an oath to you and entered into a covenant with you. and you became mine, says the Adon. Oh my goodness. My goodness. He loves his bride, Israel, guys. All the emotions are there. I love it. I love it. I don't know if you guys see that. All right, let's continue. Verse 5, trying to cover it all tonight. Let's do it. Oholah played the harlot even though she was mine, and she lost it for her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians, because we know that's where the house of Israel went into captivity to, right? Which was Samaria here, the oldest. So verse 5, we have Jeremiah 31:9. They shall come with weeping, and with supplications I will lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way in which they shall not stumble, for I am a father to Israel. And what I said before, and Ephraim is my firstborn. So, oh, guys, like, you see what I mean here? It all goes back to what I said at the beginning. Like, yes, he's bringing the fury, he's bringing the fire, he's causing them to just burn, right? But then he says, they shall come with weeping, and with supplications I will lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters. How he cleanses us, right? Bro, I can't. But anyway, let's continue. 2 Kings 15:19. Pul, king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hands might be with him to strengthen the kingdom under his control. And this, by the way, it's in regards to verse 5. And Menahem was the king that was ruling over the house of Israel. So I wanted to point that out because it's talking here about she lost it for her lovers, right? And the neighboring Assyrians is her lovers. So I wanted to pull that out because Pul, king of Assyria, which is not, obviously Assyria is not Israel, came against the land, and then Menahem, which is the king of Judah, gave 1,000 talents to him, that his hand might be with him to strengthen the kingdom under his control. So in other words, he trusted more the king of pagan nation than the Most High. That's what I'm trying to point out here. 2 Kings as well, we see that with King Ahaz. So Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, whatever that, king of Assyria, saying, I am your servant. Look what he says to the king of Assyria. I am your servant and your son, bro. Come up and save me from the hand of the king of Syria and from the hand of the king of Israel, who's rise up against me. This is a king of the house of Israel who's pleading with the king of Assyria, guys. Just wanted to show you that. We also see that in 2 Kings 17:3. This is now Hoshea being the king of the house of Israel as well. It says, Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against him, and Hoshea became his vassal and paid him tribute money. Ain't that a thing? Ezekiel 16:28, you also played the harlot with the Assyrians because you were insatiable. Indeed, you played the harlot with them and still were not satisfied. So you see now what it means when the Most High is talking about you played the harlot, you committed adultery. It's literally going after other nations, other gods, and going after what they do. And that should be a lesson to us today, not to do what this world is doing, not to participate in what this world is participating in, because then we ourselves become the harlots. So just wanted to reiterate that. Hosea 5:13, when Ephraim saw his sickness and Judah saw his wound, then Ephraim went to Assyria and sent to King Jareb, yet he cannot cure you, nor heal you or your wound. That is again why I love speaking of sickness as when you are not in covenant, because that's literally what I believe it means when Messiah in Isaiah, it says, by his stripes we were healed from our sickness, which is why these kings from pagan nations could not cure the house of Israel, or aka Ephraim. And we also see that in Hosea 8:9-10. For they have gone up to Assyria like a wild donkey alone by itself. Ephraim has hired lovers. Yes, though they have hired among the nations. Now I will gather them, and they shall sorrow a little because of the burden of the king and princes. Are you guys getting everything up to this point? Just want to make sure I'm not going too fast. I'm going to read what Stephanie shared, Jeremiah 31:3. Yes, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I have drawn you. That post that Jessica did, I'm not gonna lie, it's just perfection, because it's Literally, our Elohim is an Elohim full of emotions and love, and I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that one, Steph. We have verse 8. She has never given up her harlotry brought from Egypt. And again, remember, he took him out of Egypt and he took him in the wilderness so that he could remove Egypt out of their hearts, right? But we know that in the wilderness, they still committed harlotry with the golden calf. So that's why he's saying she has never given up her harlotry brought from Egypt. For in her youth, they had lain with her, pressed her virgin bosom, and poured out their immorality upon her. We have Exodus, speaking of the wilderness, 32 verse 4. And he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. Then they said, this is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. The nerve, right? First Kings 12:28. Therefore the king asked advice, made 2 calves of gold, and said to the people, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Egypt. Can you, bro? And by the way, this was King Hoshea that did this. No, wait. This is First Kings 12. No, this was King Jeroboam. Just kidding. Jeroboam was the one who took on the 10 tribes. So he was the first king of the house of Israel. And the very first king, by the way, of the house of Israel already commands to go and make the 2 calves and proclaim them as your God and believe that they're the gods that took you out of Egypt. Bro, sorry. It's like a smack in the face of the Most High. 2 Kings 10:29. However, Jehu did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, the same king here, the son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. That is, from the golden calves that were at Bethel and Dan. So again, we see Jehu, who's also a king for the house of Israel, continue on the same pattern. We see 2 Kings 17:16. So they left all the commandments of the Most High, their Elohim, made for themselves a molded image and 2 calves, and made a wooden image and worshipped all the host of heaven. Sounds like what's it called? The zodiac, right? And served Baal. And again, this happened under the rule of Hoshea, King Hoshea, which also ruled over the house of Israel. And we will see again in Ezekiel 23:3, they committed harlotry in Egypt. They committed, we just read that, in their youth. And again in verse 19, yet she multiplied her harlotry in calling to remembrance the days of her youth when she had played the harlot in the land of Egypt. You were going to ask what, Sylvia? I'm not sure when that question came out, when the text came out.
Basically, they just were, brought out of captivity and then commingled themselves with other people and got into captivity.
You're talking about what I read with the 2 Kings?
Yeah.
No, so 2 Kings, they were not in captivity yet.
She's referring to Exodus. Like,
yeah,
they came
like
out.
when he took them out of Egypt and then brought them to the promised land, and then they found other people to corrupt themselves with and go into captivity again.
Sorry, I didn't understand your question. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, am I getting this right?
No, I'm the one who didn't get it right. I'm so sorry. No, absolutely. So basically, yeah, they returned. Thank you. I was gonna say that, Stephanie. We're so in sync most of the time. Anyway, yes, they returned back to their vomit. Literally, where Abba took them out from captivity, they're like, okay, let's go back, because yeah, whatever. The vomit was good, so that's literally what they did. The treacherous women, right? Ay, Dios mío. Anyway, let's continue. Verse 9. Therefore, I have delivered her into
Wait,
the
and I
hand.
have another question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Before you move on. So the 2 sisters, and you were talking about, can you go back to your slide? I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. This is what we're doing here. Which side? The initial one where I show both?
No, this, go to the next one. Let me see. The one that talks about the sisters.
Well,
So,
let's talk about Samaria first.
correct. So her own tabernacle, does this mean that, like, they had the tabernacle, the physical one where they, like, the actual building that they carry around, and then When
They
you go to the sister, it's their tabernacle becomes Messiah?
So, yeah, okay, well, so obviously Messiah is what has been referenced of when it comes to Judah. However, it was also physical because um so the tabernacle was in Jerusalem. That's where where Solomon built it in Jerusalem, right? The
Mhm.
temple, I mean, like the actual physical temple.
Yeah,
Um,
the one that they moved around and they did the sacrifices where the Holy of Holies. Is
well,
that what
yeah,
we're talking about?
that began from the wilderness, and then
Mhm.
with David tried to build him an actual temple, but the Most High told him no.
Mhm.
So he still carried it around, but it was basically in Jerusalem. So
Okay.
yes, it was in Jerusalem, and then Solomon, his son, was the one who actually built an actual temple, which is why I believe Judah had the tabernacle with them, both physically and later spiritually, meaning Messiah, right? For the house of Israel, they didn't have the tabernacle because they went to Samaria, which was to the north of the country, right? And
Mhm.
not only did they not have a physical tabernacle, but remember, these people were building freaking high places for other Baals, for other gods. So
Okay,
yeah,
got it. Thank you.
so
Liz,
this
I wanted to add something.
yes, absolutely.
Um, well, the Ark of the Covenant or the tabernacle where David was when he was first carrying it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was in Samaria. So it
Yes, yes, yes.
started out there, and then when he settled in the city of David in Jerusalem was
He
when the tabernacle stayed there. And then of
absolutely
course the
yes.
temple was built there.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it did say he did, however, yes, settle in Jerusalem, and that's where it was, which is kind of like where I was kind of going with the idea of the tabernacle being with her, with Judah. But yes, absolutely, it started from Samaria, and I believe because it has to do with the 12 tribes. That's the idea of the 12 tribes together, right? With one common tabernacle. Um, but yeah, thank you for that observation. I like that. Do I continue or you have other questions?
I'm good for now. Thank you.
I'll make sure you get it. All right. So verse 9, therefore I have delivered her into the land of her lovers, into the hand of the Assyrians, for whom she lusted. We have, again, speaking of the house of Israel in captivity to Assyria, we have 2 Kings 17, 3 through 7. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against him, and Hoshea, this is a king of the house of Israel, became his vassal. We had already read that, right? Gave him tribute money. But now let's read the rest. And the king of Assyria uncovered conspiracy by Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no tribute to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore, the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. This is when already things start going down for the house of Israel. Verse 5, now the king of Assyria went throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it for 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away to Assyria and placed them in Halah and by the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Most High their Elohim, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and they had feared other gods. So again, they were worshiping other gods. They had high places for other gods. So Jeremiah 3, 8 and 11. Then I saw that all the causes for which backsliding Israel had committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a certificate of divorce. I know we had read this, but again and again, it all comes down to the backsliding that Israel did. Ezekiel 16, 51 and 52. And again, this is pertaining to verse, did I say 9? Think. Okay, this is pertaining to 11 actually. So let me read it. Now, although her sister Oholibah, this is now pertaining Judah. Now, her sister Oholibah saw this, she became more corrupt in her lust than she, and in her harlotry more corrupt than her sister's harlotry. And this is what the Jeremiah precept was connecting to as well, right here. So Ezekiel 16, 51, 52 with verse 11. Samaria did not commit half of your sins, which I think is pretty interesting given the fact that we know for a fact the house of Israel had no righteous king ruling over them. So I don't know. I thought that was very interesting. But you have multiplied your abominations more than they, and have justified your sisters by all the abominations which you have done. You who judged your sisters bear your own shame also, because the sins which you committed were more abominable than theirs. They are more righteous than you. Yes, be disgraced also, and bear your own shame, because you justified your sisters. And this is pertaining Judah. You know what I believe? Again, this might be me. I believe the reason why they are considered, meaning like the house of Israel is considered like more righteous than them, I believe is because Judah should have known better. Like the saying of, you know better, you do better, obviously. And Judah had righteous kings who led them to do righteousness and rebuild the temple each time, broke down the high places, like tear down, burn the high places and all the good stuff. And yet maybe I don't know, let me see what Stephanie's saying. I think this is because of Hezekiah asking for help from Egypt against the threat of Assyria after having reinstituted the feasts and everything. Yes, I know the context of that is that, but I'm saying like in general, like how they were considered more righteous. We know both they weren't righteous, but the comparison, meaning like Samaria did not commit half of your sins, right? I don't know. Does that make sense? You let me know. Well, let me continue. Verse 11, verse 12, we have, she lusted for the neighboring Assyrians, captain and rulers, clothed most gorgeously, horsemen riding on horses, all of them desirable young men. Connecting to that, I have 2 Kings 16, 7 through 8. So Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath, that I am your servant and your son. I think we read that already. But it's connecting because it says, and Ahaz took the silver and gold that was found in the house of the Most High and in the treasuries of the king's house and sent it as a present to the king of Assyria. Like he literally took the stuff from the Most High to give to the king of Assyria. That's what I wanted to reiterate there. And then we see again in Ezekiel 16, verse 28, you also played the harlot with the Assyrians because you were insatiable. Indeed, you played the harlot. Ezekiel 23, 6 and 23, who were clothed in purple, captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen riding on horses. We just read that recently. Verse 23, the Babylonians, all the Chaldeans, all those names, all the Assyrians with them, all of them desirable young men, governors and rulers, captains of men of renown, all of them riding on horses. So this is making reference of all those young men to those princes and kings from the pagan nations that they were basically giving tribute to. Sylvie, yes, you have a question.
Sorry, I said I was gonna ask.
Huh?
I'm
Yeah,
like,
you ask.
sorry, I said I was gonna ask. I'm gonna be very interactive on classes now.
Please, by all means, I'd rather you understand.
Could it be because going back to the whole tabernacle and having it like with them and the expectation and then having Messiah, that they were considered more right, or like that they were considered that
Oh, like what I was asking.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe because, well, at that point, Messiah obviously wasn't with them. Um, but again, they had righteous kings that were leading them to do righteous things. And yeah, they did have the tabernacle. They did have the temple. I believe so. There might be that connection, aside from what Stephanie had noted in the chat, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The context of it indeed was having the king reinstituting a righteous king, by the way, because Hezekiah was a very righteous king, which again is the point I was trying to make. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
All right. So verse 14, it says, but she increased her harlotry. She looked at men portrayed on the wall, images of Chaldeans portrayed in vermilion. We have connecting with that, Jeremiah 50 and 2, declare among the nations, proclaim and set up a standard, proclaim, do not conceal it, say Babylon is taken, Bel is shamed, Merodach Merodach is broken in pieces. Her idols are humiliated. Her images are broken in pieces. We also see Ezekiel 8 and 10. So I went in and saw, and there every sort of creeping thing, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed all around on the walls. Ain't that a thing? We have verse 16. As soon as her eyes saw them, she lusted for them and sent messengers to them in Chaldea. And again, this has to do with Judah, by the way, her younger sister Judah. All of this has to do with Judah. Verse 16, right? That she saw them and she lusted for them, meaning the things that her sister had, all the idols. We see that in 2 Kings 24 verse 1. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his vassal for 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. Isaiah 57 verse 9. You went to the king with ointment and increased your perfumes. You sent your messengers far off and even descended to Sheol. Basically, these people were doing all the things to be right with these kings, right? Verse 17, then the Babylonians came to her into the bed of love, and they defiled her with their immorality. So she was defiled by them and alienated herself from them. I'm just going to connect that with Ezekiel itself, 23, 22, and 28. Therefore, Oholibah, thus says the Adon Elohim, behold, I will stir up your lovers against you, from whom you have alienated yourself, and I will bring them against you from every side. 28, for thus says the Adon Elohim, surely I will deliver you into the hand of those you hate, into the hand of those whom you alienated yourself. The fall is greater for someone who is in covenant and breaks it. Yes, absolutely. That goes with what we're talking before. Okay, verse 18. She revealed her harlotry and uncovered her nakedness. Then I alienated myself from her, as I alienated myself from her sister. Again, both sisters. He alienated himself. Verse 18, Jeremiah 6 and 8, be instructed, O Jerusalem, lest my soul depart from you, lest I make you desolate, a land not inhabited. We have also Psalm 78:59, when the Most High heard this, he was furious and greatly abhorred Israel. So yes, this has to do with the alienating himself, right? Psalms 106 verse 40, therefore the wrath of the Adon was kindled against his people, so that he abhorred his own inheritance. And abhorred is a strong word, right? You cannot abhor something who you didn't love first. So, but we know what he abhorred was the sin. And in that he abhorred the people that were not in covenant. Jeremiah 12 and 8, my heritage is to me like a lion in the forest. It cries out against me. Therefore I have hated it. For those who say that the Most High loves everyone, well, I think the word says otherwise. You're either with him or without him, right? It's like I see it like a bad breakup type of thing, right? Like when you let go of someone who was really toxic and did you really, really wrong, yeah, you might have some type of love for that person, but you don't want to see that person near you. Just saying, right? Leviticus, well, verse 19. Yet she multiplied her harlotry, and calling to remembrance the days of her youth, when she had played the harlot in the land of Egypt. Speaking of Judah, again, Leviticus 18 and 3, according to the doings of the land of Egypt, where you dwelt, you shall not do. And according to the doings of the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you, you shall not do, nor shall you walk in their ordinances. And it's exactly what they didn't do. Or should I say they did do. Ezekiel 23 and 2, again, son of man, they were two women, the daughters of one mother. And again, I believe that one mother has to do with what Revelation later speaks as the woman, which is Babylon. Come out of her, my people. We have verse 21. Thus you call to remembrance the lewdness of your youth, when the Egyptians pressed your bosom because of your youthful breasts. Connecting with that, we have Ezekiel 16:26. You also committed harlotry with the Egyptians, your very fleshly neighbors, and increase your acts of harlotry to provoke me to anger. We also have, actually, no, just that. The rest is for the next portion. So who can read the rest of the chapter now? Yes,
Oh,
Mauricio?
yeah. Sorry, I forgot for a second.
Yeah, so now read the rest of it.
Okay, so I read through.
Yes.
Okay. Therefore, O Oholibah, thus says the Most High Elohim, behold, I will stir up your lovers against you, from whom you have alienated yourself, and I will bring them against you from every side. The Babylonians, all the Chaldeans, Pekod, Shoa, Koa, all the Assyrians, with them, all of them desirable young men, governors and rulers, captains and men of renown, all of them riding on horses. And they shall come against you with chariots, wagons, war horses, with horde of people, and they shall array against you buckler, shield, helmet around you, and I will delegate judgment to them, and they shall judge you according to their judgments. And I will set my jealousy against you, and they shall deal furiously with you. They shall remove your nose and your ears. Your remnant shall fall by the sword, and they shall take your sons and your daughters. Your remnant shall be devoured by fire. They shall also strip you of your clothes and take you away your beautiful jewelry. And thus I will make you seize your lewdness and your harlotry, but brought from the land of Egypt, so that you will not lift your eyes to them, nor remember Egypt any more. For thus says the Most High Elohim, surely I shall deliver you into the hand of those you hate, into the hand of those whom you alienated yourself. They will deal hatefully with you, take away all you have worked for, and leave you naked and bare, and the nakedness of your harlotry shall be uncovered, both your lewdness and your harlotry. I will do these things to you because you have gone as a harlot after the Gentiles, because you have become defiled by their idols. You have walked in the way of your sister, therefore I will put the cup in your hand. Thus says the Most High Elohim, you shall drink of your sister's cup. The deep and the wide one you shall be laughed to scorn, and held in derision. It contains much. You will be filled with drunkenness and sorrow, the cup of horror and desolation, the cup of sister Samaria. You shall drink it and drain it, and you shall break its shards, and tear out your own breast. For I have spoken, says the Most High Elohim. Therefore, thus says the Most High Elohim, because you have forgotten me and cast me behind your back, therefore you shall bear the penalty of your lewdness and your harlotry. The Most High said to me, Son of man, will you judge Oholah and Oholibah? And declare to them their abominations, for they have committed adultery, and blood is on their hands, and they have committed adultery with their idols, and even sacrificed their sons, whom they bore to me, passing them through the fire to devour them. Moreover, they have done this to me. They have defiled my sanctuary on the same day and profaned my Sabbaths. For after they had slain their children for their idols, on the same day they came into my sanctuary to profane it. And indeed, thus they have done this in the midst of my house. Furthermore, you have sent for men to come from afar, sent men to come from afar, to whom a messenger was sent. There they came, and they washed yourself for them, painted your eyes, and adorned yourself with ornaments. You sat on a stately couch with a table prepared before it, on which you had set my incense and my oil. And the sound of carefree multitude was with her, and the Sabaeans brought from the wilderness with the men of the common sort, who put bracelets on their wrists and beautiful crowns on their head. Then I said concerning who had grown old in adulteries, will they commit harlotry with her now, and she with them? Yet they went in her, and as men go into the women who plays the harlot, thus the women in Oholah and Oholibah, the lewd women, that the righteous man will judge them after the manner of adulteresses, and after the manner of women who shed blood, because they are adulteresses, and blood is on their hands. For thus says the Most High, bring up an assembly against them, give them up to trouble and plunder. The assembly shall stone them with stones, execute them with the swords, and they shall slay their sons and their daughters, and burn their houses with fire. Thus I shall call lewdness to the sea to cease from the land, that all women may be taught not to practice your lewdness, and they shall repay you for lewdness, and you shall pay for your idolatrous sins. Then you shall know that I am the Most High Elohim.
Amen. Okay, so we see, thank you, Yasmin. We see this portion, it's about the judgment not only for Jerusalem, but the two sisters. And there's a lot that it's gonna be very repetitive to what we've already shared. So I'm gonna try to keep it to the point, to make it make sense with everything for you ladies. So let me see. Verse 23, let me see. The Babylonians, all the Chaldeans, Pekah, Shoah, Koah, all the Assyrians with them, all of them desirable young men, governors and rulers, captains of renown, all of them riding on horses. We already know these are all the kings and princes of the pagan nations that they went basically after, right? Giving the gold of the Most High too. So I just want to read quickly Jeremiah 50 and 21. Um, Go up against the land of Merathaim, against it and against the inhabitants of Pekod, waste and utterly destroy them, says the Adon, and do according to all that I have commanded you. Ezekiel 23:12, again, we know that they had lost it after these people, and these are the people that there's judgment befalling on. We also have verse 25. I will set my jealousy against you, and they shall deal furiously with you. They shall remove your nose and your ears, and your remnant shall fall by the sword. They shall take your sons and your daughters, and your remnants shall be devoured by fire. And that was physical, actual fire, a curse that was going to befall upon them. We see on Isaiah 3, down here. Isaiah 3:18 through 23. In that day, the Adon will take away the finery, the jingling anklets, the scarves, and the crescents, the pendants, the bracelets, and the veils, the headdresses, the leg ornaments, and the headbands, the perfume boxes, the charms, and the rings, the nose jewels, the festal apparel, and the mantles, the outer garments, the purses, and the mirrors, and the fine linen, the turbans, and the robes. By the way, guys, I want to make a little parenthesis here. When I grew up in I don't want to call it legalistic, but a very traditional, I guess, church back in Dominican Republic, and I remember they would read these things and kind of say like, oh, we shouldn't wear certain things because the Most High removed them all from his people, da 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 da. And I remember like we had to be very modest. Obviously, yes, I do believe that modesty, the Most High, especially us as women, we're to be modest in all things, not just in clothing, but not too much makeup, not too much of anything, right? However, I just want to make a point that the reason why the Most High removed these things, it wasn't because it was bad. It was because it was a punishment. They were going into captivity. And the punishment was like you had it all. You had the riches, you had the glory, you had everything. Now you're going back in captivity, so you're going to be bare now. Basically, that's what I believe this is speaking of. This was not speaking of that he did not want us to wear those things. As a matter of fact, we see later, I believe it's in Isaiah, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe in Isaiah later we see a promise that he gives them back the jewelry, right? I know I've read it. It's either in Isaiah or maybe in Ezekiel. I don't know. I know there is, yes, context is key, Yasmin. There is a precept that he promises to bring back the rings and bring back everything that he took away, in other words. So I just wanted to point that out. The covenant jewelry, yes. Yes, Stephanie, because we know jewelry was a sign of covenant as well. For the marriage, what did he do with, was it Rebecca? It was Rebecca, right? That they put a ring on her nose immediately. Um, so it was, yes, they were being stripped of the representation of his love and commitment to them. Absolutely. That was part of it. Absolutely. And we see that also with the fine linen and the turbans and the robes, which had to do with the priestly garments as well. So yes, absolutely. All right, let's go back. That was verse 25. Oh wait, I want to read Zephaniah actually for verse 25 as well. Oh, I don't think I put, oh, it's right here, Zephaniah. Zephaniah 1:18. Did I read this? I don't think so. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Adon's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by fire of his jealousy, for he will make speedy riddance of all those who dwell in the land. Yes, this had to do with verse 25. So now verse 26, where it says, they shall strip out of your clothes and take away your beautiful jewelry. Actually, what I read from Isaiah goes with 26 as well. And we have verse 27. No, I'm not going to read 27 because what I have is from Ezekiel. That makes sense. I'm going to go to 28. All right, so for thus says the Adon Elohim, surely I will deliver you into the hand of those you hate, into the hand of those from whom you alienated yourself. Verse 28, Deuteronomy 28, part of the curses, we see that as a result. Deuteronomy 28, verse 48, therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom the Adon will send against you, in hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, and in need of everything. And he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. And obviously, we know that was part of the curse. That actually goes with verse 29. For verse 28, Jeremiah 21 is what I wanted to read. 21, 7 and 10. And afterwards, says the Adon, I will deliver Zedekiah, king of Judah, his servants, and the people, and such as are left in the city from the pestilence and the sword and the famine into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into the hand of their enemies and into the hand of those who seek their life, and he shall strike them with the edge of the sword. He shall not spare them or have pity or mercy. Nor now you shall say to this people, thus says the Adon, behold, I set before you the way of life and the way of death. He who remains in the city shall die by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. But he who goes out and defects to the Chaldeans who besiege you, he shall live, and his life shall be as a prize to him. For I have set my face against the city for adversity and not for good. Says the Adon, it shall be given to the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall burn it with fire. Which is why, in terms, the city ends up being desolate. We have also for chapter 29, they will deal hatefully with you, take away all you have worked for, and leave you naked and bare. The nakedness of your harlotry shall be uncovered, both your lewdness and your harlotry. We have is oh, it is Ezekiel. Never mind. Never mind. I'm trying to skip the ones that correlate within Ezekiel itself because I feel like it's redundant. We've covered out, not that it's redundant because we've already went over it in the previous chapter. So Ezekiel verse 31. You have walked in the way of your sister, therefore I will put her cup in your hand. And I want to talk about this cup. But before I go there, I see some precepts being shared. Isaiah 61:10. I will greatly rejoice in the Adon. My soul shall exult in my God. For he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. Yes, he has covered me with the robe of righteousness. Thank you, Stephanie. That's not the one I was talking about, right? As a bridegroom decks himself like a priest with a beautiful headdress, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels. Yes. Thank you for sharing that one. That one, again, that one's Isaiah 61:10, and that was what I was making reference to. That the Most High later basically beautifies the bride. Matthew 7:13 and 14. Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in it by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go back to verse 31 again. Before I will put her cup in your hand, I want to break this down because this is speaking the judgment that befalls on Jerusalem, right? It says you have walked in the way of your sister, meaning your sister, the house of Israel, the one that went to Samaria. And because of that, it says, therefore, I will put her cup. So the cup that belongs to the sister, he puts in her hand, meaning in the house of Judah. So I want you guys to understand that now. Verse 31, we have 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 13. And I will stretch over Jerusalem the measuring line of Samaria and the plummet of the house of Ahab. I will wipe Jerusalem as one wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. And this was during the reign of Manasseh, which was a very unrighteous king of Judah. Jeremiah 7, 14 and 15. Therefore, I will do to the house which is called by my name, in which you trust, and to this place which I gave to you and your fathers, as I have done to Shiloh. And I will cast you out of my sight, as I have cast out all your brethren, the whole posterity of Ephraim. Jeremiah 25 and 15. For thus says the Adon Elohim, Israel to me, take this wine cup of fury from my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send you to drink it. Again, take this wine cup and cause all the nations to whom I send you to drink it. The cup of his fury, right? Ezekiel 23:33, we saw, you will be filled with drunkenness and sorrow, the cup of horror and desolation, the cup of your sister Samaria. So it's the cup that belongs to the sister Samaria. So I want to connect that with later what Messiah did. Matthew 26:39, when he prayed, it says, he went a little farther and fell on his face and prayed, saying, oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. So what am I trying to say with this? The cup of fury, it's literally what befell on Messiah, because it was the cup that belonged to Samaria. It was given, as stated in Ezekiel, to his sister Judah. Messiah is the one that takes it, which is why he asks, let this cup pass from me, because he understood what this meant. It meant his fury was going to befall upon Messiah on behalf of the sin of the harlot sisters. And that is, whew, it always like, makes me want to scream of, I don't know, all the emotions I have right now, because it's just, he took it for us. He took the fury. Look, I put together, just so you guys can see it better. By the way, I'm going to talk about this briefly, but I want to show the thing with the cup. So the cup is often used in the Bible to symbolize the Most High's judgment or a time of great suffering. The cup is also used to symbolize the blessedness and joy to the children of the Most High. Hence why we also see Bible verses such as my cup runneth over, right? So it could be a good thing. In Matthew 20, verse 22, Messiah asks James and John if they can drink the cup assigned to him, meaning the suffering that he would soon endure. In Mark 10:38, the cup has negative connotations and represents the cup of divine wrath that Messiah would drink on behalf of his people, what I just said a few seconds ago. And interestingly, I put this here because the story of the Passover, I believe, weaves together themes of judgment and salvation. The Most High poured out his judgment on the Egyptians, but spared the Israelites who obeyed him. And so why am I sharing this? Because I believe that Messiah taking the cup of wrath for us placed us now in the cup of this cup, the cup of blessedness and the cup of joy, which is literally what the people in covenant partook in during the Passover. So I just wanted to share that because to me it brought so much insight more on what Messiah truly did for us. And we see it also in Psalms 116:13. I will take up the cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Adon. And we know that cup is because Messiah took that for us. So it's now the cup of salvation on our behalf. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out pertaining to the cup right here on verse, where was it? Oh, here, 31. And also I want to read from John 18:11 pertaining to that same verse. So Messiah said to Peter, put your sword into the sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me? And again, it's the same idea that he tells James and I believe it was John. So yeah, beautiful connection there. Let's continue. So we have a few more connections to make here. Verse 34. You shall drink and drain it. You shall break its shards and tear at your own breast, for I have spoken, says the Adon. Yes, we have here Psalms 75:8. For in the hand of the Adon there is a cup, again, and the wine is red. It is fully mixed, and he pours it out. Surely its dregs shall all the wicked of the earth drain and drink down. And again, that is the cup that Messiah took, that cup of fury. And it's funny that it says, and the wine is red, because literally he makes so many connections with the wine. Messiah himself converting the water into wine and in the wedding. Just wanted to point that out. Isaiah 51:17, awake, awake, stand up, O Jerusalem, you who have drunk at the hand of the Adon the cup of his fury. You have drunk the dregs of the cup of trembling and drained it out. Isaiah 17:10. This has to do with verse 35, actually. Therefore, thus says the Adon Elohim, because you have forgotten me and cast me behind your back, therefore you shall bear the penalty of your lewdness and your harlotry. And this is Isaiah 17:10. Because you have forgotten the Elohim of your salvation and have not been mindful of the rock of your stronghold, therefore you will plant pleasant plants and set out foreign seedlings. Jeremiah 3:21. A voice was heard on the desolate heights, weeping and supplications of the children of Israel, for they have perverted their way, they have forgotten the Most High their Elohim, as well as in Hosea 8:14. For Israel has forgotten his maker and has built temples. Judah has also multiplied fortified cities, but I will send fire upon his cities, and it shall devour his palaces, as well as Hosea 13:6. When they had pasture, they were filled, and their heart was exalted, therefore they forgot me. And I believe our prayer should be, give us enough. I think there's a Proverbs that says that. Give us enough that we may be content, but don't give us more that we may forget you. Something along those lines. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, but that should be our desire, right? Just enough to make it by in Babylon, really. I never want to have so much on me that I forget him, that causes me to forget him. 1 Kings 14:9. But you have done more evil than all who were before you. For you have gone and made for yourself other gods and molded images to provoke me to anger, and have cast me behind your back. And First Kings, this was during I think Ahab, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. No, it was after Jeroboam for sure, but I can't remember before Ahab. Anyhow, let's continue because it's late. Jeremiah 2:27, saying to a tree, you are my father. And again, this is speaking to the people, speaking to a tree, right? You are my father, and to a stone, you gave birth to me. For they have turned their back to me and not their face, but in the time of their trouble, they will say, arise and save us. And you know what's crazy? So many churches today, and I know it's not a little tree or a literal stone, but they will consider more the pastor of the church more their father than the Most High. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Jeremiah 32:33, and they have turned to me the back and not the face, though I taught them, rising up early and teaching them, yet they have not listened to receive instruction. As a parent does, right? Nehemiah 9:26, nevertheless, they were disobedient and rebelled against you, cast your law behind their backs. That's what they did with the whole turning in the backs, right? Giving the backs is cast your law behind their backs and killed your prophets who testified against them to turn them to yourself. And they were great provocations. And then just for reference, let me see. Let me just read verse 36, actually. The Adon also said to me, Son of man, will you judge Oholah and Oholibah? Then declare to them their abominations. I'll just read Isaiah 58:1. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up your voice like a trumpet. Tell my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sins. Ezekiel I'm not going to read Ezekiel. Micah 3:8. But truly I am full of power by the spirit of the Adon and the justice and of justice and might to declare to Jacob his transgression and to Israel his sin. And we see that throughout. Now, verse 37, for they have committed adultery and blood is on their hands. They have committed adultery with their idols and even sacrificed their sons, whom they bore to me, passing them through the fire to devour them. We have here, I have some Ezekiel connections, which I'm going to skip. So I'm going to do verse 38. I'd rather just focus on the ones that, yes. Moreover, they have done this to me. They have defiled my sanctuary on the same day and profaned my Sabbaths. And I have a connection here with 2 Kings 21:4-7. He also built altars in the house of the Adon, of which the Adon had said, in Jerusalem I will put my name. Verse 7, he even set a carved image of Asherah that he had made in the house of which the Adon had said to David and to Solomon his son, in this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I will put my name forever. Ouch. You know what it is? In the house of the Adon to put a carved image of a disgusting God? Anyway, and this was during the reign again of King Manasseh, king of Judah, by the way. So sad, so extremely sad. As well, verse 39, I'm also going to connect it with the kings with Manasseh. So, for after they had slain their children for their idols, on the same day they came into my sanctuary to profane it. And indeed, thus they have done it in the midst of my house. And again, this goes back to Manasseh. 2 Kings 21:2-8. And he did evil in the sight of the Adon, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Adon had cast out before the children of Israel. For he rebuilt the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed. He raised up altars for Baal and made a wooden image as Ahab, king of Israel, had done. And he worshipped all the hosts of heaven and served them. He also built altars in the house of the Adon, of which the Adon had said, in Jerusalem I will put my name. And he built altars for all the hosts of heaven in the 2 courts of the house of the Adon. Also he made his son pass through the fire, practiced soothsaying, used witchcraft, and consulted spiritists and mediums. He did much evil in the sight of the Adon to provoke him to anger. He even set a carved image of Asherah that he had made. Okay, that's what I read already. Verse 8, and I will not make the feet of Israel wander anymore from the land which I gave their fathers, only if they are careful to do according to all that I have commanded them, and according to all the law that my servant Moses commanded them. Super sad, super crazy, right, Sylvie? And this was a king of Judah. Again, what I was saying, the tabernacle was with them, but they still had very unrighteous king that, knowing these things, led the people to evil. And this specific king, his father was righteous. Hezekiah actually destroyed the high places and brought the people back to repentance and back to the covenant. So yeah, pretty bad there on King Manasseh. All right, so let's continue. Verse 40, furthermore you sent for, let me see, verse 40, yeah, I have some connections here. Verse 40, furthermore you sent for men to come from afar, to whom a messenger was sent, and there they came, and you washed yourself for them, painted your eyes, and adorned yourself with ornaments. And I do want to say some connections here as well, because again, we see the connections of the washing of ourselves, the painting of our eyes, like literally putting makeup on, and adorn as a always kind of like a negative connotation. But I do want to say something in regards to that with scriptures. So verse 40, I have Isaiah 57:9. You went to the king with ointment and increased your perfumes. You sent your messengers far off and even descended to Sheol. So that's a negative connotation for sure, right? We also see, however, with Ruth, that when she was about, if you guys are not, familiar with the story of Ruth, Ruth was a widow who, her mother-in-law was trying to find her husband. Let's just say that in a nutshell, right? So we see that Ruth was asked by Naomi, her mother-in-law, to go and wash herself before coming to, yes, with Esther too. Thank you. But I'm just putting Ruth really quick here. So let's just read it. Ruth 3:3, therefore wash yourself and anoint yourself, meaning perfume yourself, right? Put on your best garment and go down to the threshing floor. but do not make yourself known to the men until he has finished eating and drinking. And this was when she was trying to like hook her up with Boaz. But we see that she does send her to wash and perfume herself. And yes, we see it with Esther as well, when she was to be presented to the king of Persia. We do see, however, a negative connotation again in 2 Kings 9 and 30. And this is where the whole idea with makeup comes from, being as something bad. So now when Jehu had come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard it, and she put paint on her eyes and adorned her head and looked through a window. So again, negative connotation because she was trying to seduce using makeup on her eyes. But let's see what the word says. Jeremiah 4 and 30. And when you are plundered, what will you do? Though you clothe yourself with crimson, though you adorn yourself with ornaments of gold, though you enlarge your eyes with paint, in vain you will make yourself fair. Your lovers will despise you. They will seek your life. Obviously, a negative connotation when you are not doing things for the Most High. However, we do see in Revelations 21 and 2, speaking of the New Jerusalem, then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from the Most High, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So again, the whole idea with what I had mentioned before with Isaiah, the the promise that he would basically put her jewelry back on and her garments back on and basically adorn her and anoint her and perfume her, only is a negative connotation when you're doing it for other gods. So I just wanted to point that out there. Or idolatry to yourself, because other gods, you could be your own god, right? So I just wanted to point that out, that yes, it could be something negative if they're the wrong motives. I hope you guys understand that. That's what I'm trying to convey, the message I'm trying to convey here. So verse 41, yes, heart check, Silvana, absolutely. Verse 41, you sat on a stately couch with a table prepared before it, on which you had set my incense and my oil. We have Isaiah 57 and 7, on a lofty and high mountain you have set your bed, and there you went up to offer sacrifice. And again, the idea of the high mountain again is where they would go and worship other gods. Amos 2 and 8, they lie down every altar on clothes taken in pledge and drink the wine of the condemned in the house of their God, not the Most High, but their God. Amos 6 and 4, who lie on beds of ivory, stretch out on your couches, eat lambs from the flock and calves from the midst of the stall. Again, that's for other gods. And we have Hosea 2 and 8, for she did not know that I gave her grain, new wine and oil, and multiplied her silver and gold, which they prepared again for Baal. And we saw that in 2 Kings with the unrighteous king. We also have, lastly, a few more connections. Verse 47. Although I did want to speak, let me see what verse was where it talks about give me a second, guys. We're almost done. Okay, I can't find it right now. All right, so continuing, verse 47. I'll find it later. The assembly shall stone them with stones and execute them with their swords. They shall slay their sons and their daughters and burn their houses with fires. Just wanted to connect that with Leviticus 20 and 10. Here. The man who commits adultery with another man's wife, he who commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death, which is why he's using that here on verse 47, that they would be stoned to death because it is a spiritual adultery. So that is the language he's using, that from his own Torah. We also see 2 Chronicles 36, 17 and 19. Therefore he brought against them the king of the Chaldeans, who killed their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion on young men or virgin, on the aged or the weak. He gave them all into his hand. Verse 19, then they burned the house of the Most High, broke down the wall of Jerusalem, burned all its palaces with fire, and destroyed all its precious possessions. So we did see that actually took place, and that was during the king of Judah, Zedekiah. And I believe that's actually when they go into captivity, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Zedekiah? I don't remember. So verse 48, thus I will cause lewdness to cease from the land, that all women may be taught not to practice your lewdness. And for that I have Deuteronomy 13 and 11. So all Israel shall hear and fear, and not again do such wickedness as this among you. So that's the whole point of what he's doing there. So that they wouldn't continue to practice that on verse 48. And we see 2 Peter chapter 2, 5 and 7. And did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly. Verse 6, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them to destruction, making them an example to those who afterward would live ungodly. And delivered righteous Lot. Well, that part is not, but you get the point. The point of all of this is that he makes an example of all those for our own good, for us not to follow after their footsteps. And lastly, verse 49, they shall repay you for your lewdness, and you shall pay for your idolatrous sins. Then you shall know that I am the Adon, your Elohim. We have Isaiah 59:18. According to their deeds, he will repay fury to his adversaries, recompense to his enemies. The coastlands he will fully repay. And I wanted to find before, there is a verse that talks about cutting their noses, and I can't, if you guys can find it, let me know, because I do want to point out what that was or looked like with a graphic. Wonder if it was before. Oh, it was probably, no.
Verse 25.
Oh, it was further up. Okay, I don't know why I thought I had just seen it. Okay, so here, verse 25, where it says, I will set my jealousy against you, and they shall deal fiercely with you. They shall remove your nose. Yeah, this part. Thank you, Steph. They shall remove your nose and your ears, and your remnant shall fall by the sword. I wanted to point out that this verbiage was actually something that was practiced for people who committed adultery in ancient times. If you look into it, even places such as India would do that. So I did include like a picture because I looked into this, and this is what I told you I would come back to. This is what they would practice. Basically, so ancient punishment for adultery was very prominent in those days, to remove their nose and their ears. So yeah, interesting. And that completes our study for tonight. Yes, that completes our portion. So thank you for hanging out with me so late. Thank you, Stephanie, for entrusting me with your study, because I know this is a book that is very dear to you. And I pray that it edified all of you and that we could all learn something today. So may Abba bless you and Baruch you, and Shalom.